Pollard's on a double though, and he finds the third through the smoke.
It's just an ult. Yeah, he gets a 3K with an ult.
With 3 seconds left, Simon lands the pre-fire. Nobody can kill him in time.
And he clutches it out. What a play from the alibi as the lobby player goes unchecked.
Welcome back, everybody, to SCS, our second matchup of the night here. My name is Phil, joined here by Klimps as my co-commentator, and we've hopefully got a pretty close game between Vipers and Parabellum, who have both seen the downs and ups here in this Switch stage so far.
Yeah, we've seen downs and ups for them here. We've seen downs and ups for them in SI quals. These two teams, both 2-1. One of them is going to staple their name and go ahead and promote themselves into the playoffs, and one of them will have to go back to later this week and fight yet again for another spot.
Yeah, and in terms of just general play style, both these teams kind of have the struggles with the same terms of just general play. We've seen a lot of same maps picked out by both Parabellum and Vipers. They've been really playing a lot of both Villa and Oregon. I'm really interested to see if that's going to maybe affect how the map ban phase goes later on in this night. But in terms of, recent matches that they've played, both have had pretty good success. We saw Vipers winning against 6 Karma all the way in Oregon. They just look so snappy against that MXPL team. And Parabellum, although their match was sadly off stream, they recently picked up on Villa against Astralis and put down a lot of hurt against that Pro League team.
Yeah, especially for a team that we thought was going to go very far and make themselves well known. Astralis, they did win their previous match, just highlighted not too long ago here on this channel, 7-4 victories over HK Rebels, and well, at least advancing on till later in the week, and they've made themselves a 2-2. But here, Parabellum, one of the teams that everyone thought maybe a little bit more underrated than Astralis. And Parabellum, they've definitely had their ups and downs. They've been in and out here for their roster, but here they are, Parabellum, Doc, Kool-Aid, Blaz, Packer, and Silent. Packer and Silent, those last two names being the most recent pickups, but so far, Parabellum, their defensive side, definitely something to be worried about. As of late, I also do want to say, after watching their games in SI quals, their attacks are also something that's a little shaky sometimes.
Yeah, you and I both mentioned this when just talking before the show was starting up, that the late round presence by Parabellum for executing on the attack, if they're at an even playing field against the defense, they tend to struggle in terms of finding an opening, being able to spot out those isolated defenders that are maybe rotating back in the site to have that anchor in the final 30 seconds. So then they end up getting caught in these really awkward crossfires, and just they're not able to either get the man advantage or just keep it even against their opponents. And we saw a lot of that in their recent Villa matchup in SI Open quals against RTV. They would struggle with dealing with those initial roamers, and even if when they found the opening gunfight, RTV would just simply play like RTV. They would look for those isolated one-on-one gunfights, all of a sudden put things back in a 3-on-3, and then Parabellum are just kind of sitting ducks waiting for their own demise. But on the defense, it's somewhat of a different story, especially when you have players like Blaz popping off on the entry, when you have Silent doing God's work with the 416 as he runs Jaeger so often. So if we can see that same kind of Parabellum where they are firing on all cylinders, not just on the defense, but on the attacking half as well, we could have a really flourishing game for them on whatever map we go to.
Well, John, the one thing, though, I do want to backtrack to your point about RTV and how they play and go for those one-on-one gunfights. Well, Call Viper is the second coming of RTV because they love to do the exact same thing. Their roster containing of Maxillian creators, those two guys love going for those 1v1 gunfights. They love getting aggressive. They love those fights overall. Creators, Maxilli, Poison, Twist, and I believe that Nyx will now be filling in for Drix. If I'm not wrong, I believe that Vipers did make that roster change. We saw that in the most recent SI Open qual, so I'm not sure if we'll see Drix or Nyx tonight, but more than likely my money would be on seeing Nyx.
And it isn't the first rodeo you could say it's been for Nyx playing, at least with Poison. I remember back when they were on Nocturnes for Stage 1 to Challenger League, they played together, and they didn't have the best stage overall, but they had their moments. You would see that Poison creativity where he would try to go for a really, interesting strategy, bring out the Nook, going for some last-second lurk change before Nook was, really potent for that, or at least utilized a lot for that role. So now having Nyx back in their team, that could maybe give Poison more, I guess, creative liberty to do what he wants in the late round, make those last second, huge shot calls, while Nyx does a lot of the other work as some sort of, main caller or just main strategizer. That way Poison can just kind of do his own thing, but not be in as much trouble if that backfires.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, these two teams, there's going to be some definite back and forth. We'd like to see Nyx here on this pickup kind of being someone to help out Vipers on their IGLing. They're a team that's really struggled on their attacks, I want to say, and for Poison being such a good and potent IGL, some of their executes have just fallen short. So maybe bringing in someone like Nyx will actually help them out. But as well, I mean, the back end for both teams, Kool-Aid being one of those very important players for Parabellum, Creators on the other end, very aggressive, very upfront. These two players have had pretty solid SCS stage ratings. Maybe Creators not so much, but Kool-Aid has played very well, playing on that supportive role more so, 2-1 on entry, and on the other end, Creators 4-2 on entry, being one of those more spearhead players, but kind of on that secondary entry role. We usually see Maxilli maybe going for that primary entry, and Creators who's always kind of been on that secondary entry role. Really forthcoming here so far in SCS7.
Say, for me, it seems like it's going to be a major battle of that Blaz and Silent duo versus Creators and Maxley, you know, two people that can be very upfront, rather aggressive in that first and secondary entry role, and that just begins to tip the momentum in the favor of Vipers. And they also face the same problems that Parabellum does. If they don't have some sort of advantage, or if they don't have a lot of time to set up that execute, they can falter on the attack. And funny enough, Kool-Aid, someone who I didn't really mention during that comparison, one of his top operators was that Ying. She can be a fantastic operator to help enable those executes really thrive when you're not in a very winnable predicament. If you're only, you know, having 20 to 15 seconds left in the round, you're not in a good spot to get that plant down. Ying can create so much space with those Candelles to really tip the tide back in your favor. And funny enough, Parabellum, they also acknowledge that. So not only do they bring her out on the rare occasion, but they have also been known to ban her, which on maps like Villa, something that we could definitely see with both Vipers and Parabellum liking that map. I wouldn't be shocked if we see her being insta-banned by Parabellum, because Vipers bring her out a lot to, again, help with those executes they sometimes fail at.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. My guess is we're probably not going to see an operator like Ying on maybe Villa or Oregon, if those are the maps that we go to. John, you're highlighting a lot about these two teams liking those maps, so let's go see what maps we're really going to go to. And I would put my bets with you as well. So much when I go back into Liquipedia and onto Siege GG and use those platforms to do some research on these rosters, they love Villa and Oregon. Those are default stock standard maps, and maybe some would call them boring, and you know, we all go with Oregon. Villa's been in the comp pool for so long, and it's a map that maybe we're a little bit concerned about getting stale and dull as well. But these two teams seem to make them interesting. Most notably, Parabellum playing its S2 on Oregon. They went pretty well on their attacks, splitting them pretty evenly, but their defenses were abysmal. And Vipers going for that counter pick on Oregon. As you see, that is the map they have selected. On the other end, well, Parabellum selecting Villa. They just beat Astralis on it last week. Unfortunately, that match was not streamed, so we don't have too much real raw video VOD data of what happened. But if you're beating a team like Astralis pretty handily on Villa, that's a good sign for Parabellum to go there.
So I haven't seen Parabellum play Chalet in quite some time, but again, it is a very 50-50 map. It's become a lot more default than it was, you know, a few seasons ago. So I'm not, you know, too surprised we have that eventually in play, along with some of the bans that we did see at the very beginning. You know, Banks, sure, we saw Parabellum, you know, beat Collegiate Connoisseurs in a pretty dominant fashion. I believe that game ended out 7-3, but besides that, they haven't had a lot of experience in recent times playing on that map. And it's kind of the same thing for Skyscraper for Vipers. I can't recall the last time I've seen Vipers play on that map. It might have been when Bio was on that team, but now obviously he's on S2 onto some greener pastures. So clearly it's a very different team that we see now for Vipers, hence that insta-lock ban that we saw. And again, we talked about the defaultness of Oregon and Villa, both Parabellum and Vipers playing those maps religiously during the best of 3 format, and even best of 1s for NAL stage 3 for the side of Parabellum. It's not really shocking we went here. We were really prefacing that going into this game.
Yeah, it definitely not a shocker by any means, but something kind of cool to see when we were looking at these previous matchups is, well, these teams have had very similar past opponents, and so I think that that's going to help us kind of get an idea of who might have the edge out in this matchup. Obviously, the only difference in their opponents being week 3, but in week 2 and week 1, they both played Collegiate Connoisseurs and S2. So at the very beginning, we saw Parabellum take, or not week 2, week 1, but rather play day 1, play day 2. We saw Parabellum take on Collegiate Connoisseurs, Parabellum took on S2, play day 1. That was the big upset that S2 had, reverse dropping that 18 nuke on Oregon and really showing some struggles out of this new Parabellum roster that had been unveiled here for SCS. But then They went next week and they went and played against Collegiate Connoisseurs. They shot a much better showing on Bank, but that again was their weaker roster. They were just unfortunately eliminated from the competition. And on the other end, well, you had S2, or not S2, Vipers, right? And they were playing against Collegiate Connoisseurs week 1, 7-4 on Border. And then week 2, they played S2 with a much closer game on Villa. So maybe we'll see a pretty damn solid Villa matchup between these two teams, but they've had a very solid similar history. The only difference is being Astralis and 6 Karma in week 3, which they both took down pretty easily.
So yeah, for Vipers against S2, it was like 2 3-3 splits at the beginning of Villa, and then they just lost both overtime rounds, hence giving S2 that victory in the best of 1. For Parabellum starting out on the attacking half of Villa, I would love to see a complete change-up from what I saw them do against Reality TV. It felt like a lot of positions, especially on that first floor, they just tried to ignore in the early round. They were solely prioritizing on that initial clear from a Master Over when dealing with the Aviator bomb site, for example. But when you had Reality TV, who was relying heavily on someone like Giddy playing over by Dining Room and Kitchen, feeding that early info as Solus, and then rotating a bit closer towards Living Room and Library to have more impact in that final execute phase, keeping him alive throughout the whole round did a lot to have some positive, I guess, feedback for Reality TV, because Giddy would be someone during the mid round to work a couple of picks and still be gathering info as that Solus role. So if Parabellum just, again, ignore that first floor, that basement presence when they're dealing with the top floor, that could lead to a lot of bad impact in the mid round when they're on the attacking half. And when you have a really horrible first half, that can sometimes, poorly carry over into your second half as well.
Yeah, both these teams have those struggling and staggering mid rounds, and so whoever prevails in the mid round, I think, in the game tonight is going to come out victorious. I do think this is going to be a 3-map series, though, going on through. I think each team will win their map pick, and then Chalet will be a toss-up between both teams if whoever just has the better mid rounds and the better late rounds are gonna show up and prevail. Both these teams like their early round plays and early round aggression, but it really comes down to who can hang it out and slinging these long, everlasting 3-minute rounds. But here we are onto the map. We've got bans starting to flood on through. Flores and Nook off the board. And my bet, John, I don't think we'll see Solus banned. I think that we might see Solus actually stay up through the ban phase.
Well, we already have Azami removed as well. That would leave it in the ballpark of Vipers if they wanted to get rid of that operator, but a Valkyrie or some other potential pick could be viable as well. No. Seems like they end up removing the Solus, which is a little shocking because, again, that lack of a first floor clear allowed Solus to thrive against Parabellum. And it wouldn't be every round where they had a poor drone economy, but there were glimmers of that, especially when Solus was available to Reality TV in that best of 3 for SI open quals. So it is a little bit shocking that Vipers want to have that ban, but maybe it's just more of a comfort thing that they don't really want to have to deal with that when they're the ones on the attacking half moving throughout in map number 1.
That's fair, but I'm also kind of confused as to why they don't bring the Solus, because for Vipers, they're a team that strives off of some of those 1v1 fights and, going and doing their own thing on their entries, right? You have players like Maxilla, you have a player like Creators who are both very good at winning their gunfights, and to not see them leave up Solus almost intentionally for Parabellum to go play her down below and try to have that operator be distracting, be annoying, right? Vipers could go take advantage. They could go, that's a free 1v1. They already get down off the site having to go deal with Solus, right? That's the thing that Vipers like to do. They like to go for those one-on-one engagements. Leaving that up may have aided them out better, but instead, they get rid of it. It's no longer going to be a problem, and it changes the map entirely.
Say Vipers starting out, Aviator and Games having a light extension over into the master side of the map, but still having a plethora of utility, not only for the bomb site itself, but also having a bit of insurance over in through main stairs. That landing position is where the only deployable shield currently is for the side of Vipers. And Parabellum, I mentioned this earlier, they frequently like to go for a master over clear, but that's not the only thing they're investing in currently. They already have Blaz and Kool-Aid over towards Study Balk, so if they want to maybe get a new angle opened up into the bomb site, they can, which can heavily weaken someone playing over by Vault, which is a really impactful spot to play at when you have someone going in for that skull default.
a rather large disbursement here by Vipers. They've really spread themselves all across the map so far, especially on the second floor. They're over on the Aviator bomb site, the trophy statuary side, and Silent nearly able to catch one of the defenders behind the trophy statue, but that's not going to happen. The Vipers roam will retreat. They pop one or two of the Volcans, trying to slow down Parabellum's attack, and Twist to kick it off, bringing down Blaz, one of those star players for Parabellum, one of those players that is able to win so many of their gunfights and is so dependent for Parabellum. They really depend on Blaz to be that spearhead entry and get a lot of those fight wins. A refrag for Kool-Aid, so things even it back out. Is Parabellum, well, they've found themselves up into the 90 hallway and look to leverage this control into the bomb site.
And 90 already gathered by Parabellum, like you had mentioned. Seems like there's a bit more resurgence there for the attacking side to just get ready again for that skull overtake. No one's really trying to challenge over towards main stairs. I believe it's just Kool-Aid over by study balcony, just waiting on the right call to start getting active with those Selma charges. If not, he's maybe rotating over to help maybe get that vault wall opened up perhaps. Parabellum still just rather stagnant and silent, unfortunately, just shoots Packer. There was a bit of damage over towards main, but I guess Parabellum just say, you know what, it's not a big deal. Let's just try to get in the bomb site and just really hope for the best in this final minute. Maybe being able to get that diffuser down if they had Kool-Aid in the bomb site, but currently he's just still outside over in study. Nice shot found by Silent, vaulting over that map's table. Creator's now looking to maybe challenge if the Iona is to overextend, but now it's just Creator's left to stand, and they've got info on this poor soul. A nade gets tossed out, forcing him in a bad spot, and Doc is there with the cleanup. So despite that team kill, Parabellum still have a pretty fluid execute.
A very questionable team kill. You know, I don't know what happened from Silent in 90, but hey, able to just explode on the bomb site was Parabellum. They hopped up and got aggressive. Vipers, there was no answer for them throughout the map, as unfortunately looks like we're gonna have a rehost, some technical difficulties, so you'll have to bear with us while we hang out here and talk about and dissect that first round. But Vipers, their roam went well off the rip, but they gave up the ground too fast, and that's a big concern for Vipers. They're not good at those retakes. They're not good at falling back to the bomb site. They need to go and make those 3v3 executes happen. They'll fare off better in those moments and in those engagements instead of a 5v5 execute. Kind of what we saw. It was like a 4v4, and Parabellum just had more bodies, more energy, more utility, and not enough was soaked out by Vipers on that roam clear.
And I really have to commend both Kool-Aid and Blaz for starting out over in study. You really get so much power by making sure no one can play in there, especially if you are going for a skull execute. Sure, Blaz was the first person to die by Twist, but if you only had one person over by study, now someone has to force themselves to rotate over in that position and then waste even more time and resources getting there. But already having both Kool-Aid and Blaz, if you lose one, you still have that same amount of map control. And Kool-Aid did so much for his teammates there to make sure that, again, when they're trying to push in, maybe getting that diffuser down later on, or in general just killing people to make space, it's not going to be as difficult because there's someone outside making sure that Vipers cannot rotate from main hallway going in through, again, study room. And especially when you did still have someone over by 90, that does leave the options rather limited on that half of the map for Vipers. They can basically only sit in sight, but eventually Packer did die 90, but it wasn't a big deal because they were already looking to just hit the bomb site and just forget about 90.
Yeah, Parabellum's definitely a team that I think does well on the roam clear. It's just really their executes that kind of flop here and there. And for them to not hesitate and just go hit the bomb site, I love that play call. I love the idea of just, let's run in. Let's go take the fights because we like that fast action. Vipers isn't great at getting back to the bomb site and supporting their friends, and they took advantage of that, and that's why you saw them just get in sight, explode on in, and that round win. I also want to say that for Parabellum to go and take the trophy side with as little contention as they really had, and Vipers to fall away so fast, they only had 3 people working that master side clear. And for most teams, they struggle with 5 to be able to get that clear going. Usually it takes a lot of utility, over a minute and a half, maybe even 2 minutes to get all of that control. Parabellum had that done with half of their team in 90 seconds. They were already up through 90. They had so much control. If Silent didn't TK, it may have even been an even faster round for Parabellum. But overall, I mean, seriously, big weird issues there for Vipers on their roam, which is something they're typically pretty solid at. They're really good at being off site and leveraging those positional advantages.
And again, with Parabellum not opting to do a lot on the first floor, I would definitely suggest for Vipers to, if you are going to fall off that roam earlier on the top floor, just keeping someone down in that first floor to C4, just general good info, so you can maybe work a pick in the mid to late round, or at the very least, maybe stop a plant from going down. Sure, you do have, Toxic Babes and you got Vulcan packs to waste for time, but neither one of those players were in the best position to use that utility, so it kind of just went into a void and didn't really slow down or even stop Parabellum whatsoever for that execute. So just having another line of defense is going to go a long way, especially if you want to play for numbers and play for utility by falling off of that roam at an early time frame. So you keep that 5-on-5. It isn't going to make much of a difference if you're not really prepared for Parabellum to just hit the go button because they don't have anything else to accomplish in that round because they cleared you out in just about a minute or less.
Yeah, I think if Parabellum just continues to go through and explode on the bomb site, they'll be very successful as well. We're back into the matchup, back in the lobby. Thank goodness that wasn't too long, not too terrible and painstaking, but going on through Parabellum Vipers. First good attack round for Parabellum. They've been pretty solid on their attacks, I would say, especially throughout SCS. So to see them already starting off kind of hot on their own map pick, I think that's something that we'll continue to see. For viewers at home that don't know, right now the Solus operator ban when we do rehost isn't actually implemented into the UI. You can't select Solus to ban, so unfortunately that's why you don't see her there. But the teams will just agree to not pick it, and it's a friendly ban. It's an agreement to not pick her, as obviously you're not allowed to.
I think I've said both times, calling it like an honor code, just it's banned, but just a friendly reminder why there's just a random blank spot here for Viper's half of the operator bans. Now starting out over in dining room and kitchen, now there is at least a decent amount of that info denial in terms of drones. You've got Maxley on the Mozzie, so those pests can at least remove a handful of drones here and there, give some extra info in the late round if Vipers want to utilize that. Also still having Nyx on the mute, a bit of wall denial in case someone wants to go for a horizontal take leading from living room heading towards that memo wall, and again just extra drone denial to help assist those roamers. But unfortunately, we've got a minute disconnect. Thankfully, the rehost, I believe, gets confirmed, so we're going to have to take a rain check on round number 2 and most likely go into a break because I don't think we really want to be waiting around any longer for a second rehost to get finished up. So we'll be back in a couple minutes once we have everyone back in lobby for Villa. Don't go anywhere.
Pollard's on a double though, and he finds a third to the smoke.
Just an ult. Getting it to 3K with an ult.
With 3 seconds left, Simon lands the pre-fire. Nobody can kill him in time.
And he clutches it out. What a play from the Alibi as the lobby player goes unchecked.
And we are back. Hopefully, we're not going to have any more rehosts. Got them all out at the beginning of the broadcast. So the rest of best of three goes by pretty smooth. If you missed round number one, you had a pretty decisive execute by Parabellum. And now with Vipers not doing so well in Aviator, they're going to opt to go in through Dining Room instead, where they have a lot more of the map, I should say, pardon, to roam for round number two.
Well, hopefully we've hit our quota. But yeah, dining room, kitchen. Solid site, really. I think that Vipers need to be aggressive here on their defense. When watching them play Villa most recently, seeing them here on kitchen dining, they struggle to hold trophy statuary, and if they don't do so and they allow for Parabellum to have that control, perform vertical play and pressure, they're going to struggle, and they're not going to be able to hold this site. So it's a risk to take this bomb site and to go here for Vipers, but also, if they make the adjustments that they need, then they'll be all right. But that's what Siege is about. It's about making those adjustments, making sure that you are on pace, on target, and you're getting everything done that you need to. But Twist bringing out the Ella, an operator we don't see too often, but those British mount mines can be a pain in the neck and extremely annoying, especially when you swing around a corner and they're about to take a fight, and then bam, you're concussed, your vision goes blurry, and you get shot from who knows where.
Usually for Parabellum, they like to start things out by going a little bit closer towards the south side of the map, maybe working their way from, study balcony, for example, having that top floor cleared while also getting someone over on the first floor in case there's anyone lurking around over by living room and library. And with that main style of attack by Parabellum, I really love the addition of Silent on the Jackal. If you have someone who's playing over by living room and library, there is a hatch you can actually fall off of. So if there's someone, playing down in the basement and gathering information with those Inox scanners, that could lead to a very impactful opening gunfight. But speaking of openers, Vipers just set themselves up with a spray down by Twist and a C4 up through the floorboards to get a kill as well. And already Blaz and Doc are lights out.
This is the tone of play and the pace that Vipers need to have continuing on forward throughout their defenses on Villa. Run out from Poison will be shut down by Packer as they read into that at least. Silent, nearly stepping into the Frost Mat and might be able to make their way up into Pantry and make a play, but no, it's actually closed off, and the Grishmont will alert to their positioning. So Packer to hit one as well. As Vipers, their defense has slowed down Parabellum's attack significantly, but they've still got progress. However, there's not much vertical destruction or verticality in play now by Parabellum. They lost Blaz, who could have been carrying breach charges on the Ash, and Doc as well on the Buck. The Skeleton Key no longer going to be in play to form any of that vertical destruction and pathway above the map. Instead, it'll be a horizontal take that'll have to take place from Parabellum, but Silent strays away. He got rid of one Frost map, but my friend, there are 3 more somewhere around the map, and that is one of them.
Yeah, caught on the rug there. The top end of that staircase, always a spot where a Frost could maybe get a cheeky matted and now have someone just out of the fight until they get picked back up. Packer might be the one to get that resurrection up and going, but it's a very dangerous spot as well. Someone could just swing him from bicycle unless maybe the Ace of Kool-Aid is playing outside. A lot of dry peeking going down as well. Not a lot of info here to work for in Parabellum during this technical 2 versus 4 Kool-Aid here for the revive, and it's actually Packer to provide coverage from that single wall. So it's Silent back in the equation. It is up into a 3 versus 4, but there's the flank by Maxwell. Time to secure 1 and 2 kills. 3 overall for the round completely, as now it just leaves Kool-Aid up and alive. And in this 1 versus 4, I don't think he's going to be able to get much done. Maybe a pseudo tactical timeout, maybe just getting a couple of exit kills, as there aren't many options left here for the Ace, just stuck outside.
Hopefully not too much of a timeout, as there it goes. Nick's able to be aggressive there on the laundry door and bring down Kool-Aid. I think they've had plenty of time to talk about their attacks
with 2 rehosts in a row.
Yeah, with 2 rehosts and plenty of time getting in the lobby, but that attack fell flat and it fell stale very quickly, and that was due to the aggression being brought out by Vipers. They like those one-on-one gunfights, and that's what Parabellum tried to go engage with on their attack, but it actually bit them in the rear. They tried to send Silent below with the Jackal, and the other players, Blaz and Doc, both kind of on their solo entries through study, getting blown out of the water, blown dead to rights from the C4. things not so great there for that attack, but Vipers with a much better defensive round and something they need to continue, that very forward and front style aggression, their jump outs and being aggressive, taking the fights to Parabellum, forcing these late round executes to come through from PB, because if Vipers can do that, they'll be able to net a few more defensive rounds on their defensive half.
Parabellum, interesting pick as well. Don't know if it'll be changed off, but Packer is bringing out the Finka. Definitely an interesting idea. Again, sure, you don't have those grenades available anymore, but you still have, utility burn with those flashes, and also you have those adrenaline surges that you can bring into the fight as well, with Parabellum being very low on HP throughout the last 30 to 40 seconds of that action phase. It definitely could be something to maybe counteract that early chip damage that Vipers has done to them back in round number 2, and it seems like Packer is looking to keep that operator in selection, so definitely hoping that Packer can do a lot more work there with that spear, and also just keep the rest of his teammates stimmed up, so that way they're not going to be really vulnerable to the next engagement they might need to take.
I think it's also a counter pick to the Ella Twist, bringing out those Grishma mines. Whenever you walk through one of those concussive blasts and you've got the Finka, you know, to actually wear off those effects a little bit faster and almost instantly. So maybe that's just a way to kind of counter off the Ella. You hear a Grishma pop, you give your teammates a boost. That gets rid of those effects, and your teammates have a much more fair advantage there in the fight, along with a little bit of extra HP. No recoil reduction. That was something that everyone argued to get rid of and out of the game. But look at Parabellum. They're already deep in through Bathroom, and this is huge for their take. If they just ignore the roam that Vipers brings and go and execute on the site quickly, they're going to be successful in this round.
A bit of vertical done, trying to maybe remove that mute jammer and also just destroy the mirror window. So Poison's position overall is going to be a little more taxing to hold, but he'll still be playing here for a good chunk of time, I could imagine. Maybe even playing close on that brick doorway with that shotgun SMG combination could maybe find some sort of opening onto Silent, as he's looking to maybe get a bit aggressive as well from Master. Really seems like Parabellum is just moments away from trying to get into the bomb site itself, but Poison, that swing I talked about earlier, finally comes into reality. Now the Ayana is gone, but there is Doc with the assist as he now waltzes into the building too. An equalization is somewhat found, but not a lot of ground still made by Parabellum. Great spray through the bore window as Hacker is able to collect one on the Poison. Doc still playing over by Master, finds his double kill, and so far this straightforward take is working wonders. They're now up 2 bodies at being Parabellum. They've got info on Twist. He's good for 1, but so low in HP this tag team could finally put him in the dirt. But across the map, Nyx also won a gunfight as well, so things are actually fairly even now between both Parabellum and Vipers. There's the attempt by Twist to make things a 2 versus 1, but the tables have turned. Doc doing so well with that C7, and now that leaves just Nyx in a 1vx, somewhat stuck inside of Trophy. He has a bit of info with that red ping, but he'll still have to fall back, having to respect this 2 versus 1 position, as Parabellum is just moments away from setting up this post plant. Kool-Aid now behind the bomb chassis, so much natural coverage. C4 wails out, it connects onto the ace. Now a true 1 versus 1 with Doc still having plenty of time, but in a weaker spot to maybe get that plant down. He now rotates into B, and there is info for Nyx. He'll force Doc to stick that plant. He gets off the diffuser, but he runs right into the gunfire of Nyx, and Vipers will hold on despite a really close call when things came down to that 4v2.
A newest pickup from Vipers and the most recent addition to this roster, Nyx, showing exactly how it's done. Plenty of Pro League experience to go for the man, and there he is, showing off. A C4 not able to be shot out there by Doc, and ends up losing their teammate of Kool-Aid, and then Nyx showing them how it's done in that 1v1 post. Doc not sticking that plant, and unfortunately losing out that fight. But Nyx, well played, well done to you, and Vipers finding their second defense. I don't think it's one they should have found. I think that Parabellum really just threw it away. They should have exploded on the bomb site maybe a little bit faster, and should have had a better plan of action for Ella Twist, who was really being a pain in the neck for Vipers, obviously getting kills that they definitely should not have gotten away with in Astro, and wasting maybe more time than Vipers or than Parabellum wish is they had lost in that engagement. But on the other end, the Vipers with a good recall back to the bomb site and winning out that 4v2.
Say both Nyx and Twist realizing the futility that they would have had if they weren't looking for any kind of 1-for-1s in that mid round, able to bring things all the way from that 4v2 back to even footing. Now that aggressive style of play that Parabellum was looking to bring out for round number 3 kind of backfired, because they weren't in the best position to get that execute going until they were able to find that pick onto Twist. Now it is only Nyx who is still in the back over by Boar, but luckily on the mirror he had enough utility to have the C4 door. That way you could stop the plant from going down. And there were still boatloads of info, something that Vipers from time to time can be lacking on, but luckily because they weren't, it fed plenty of info for Nyx to make sure he could play into that 1v1 almost perfect.
Well, Nyx isn't someone that the Vipers brought on for gun skill, but rather maybe some of his intelligence and also some of that experience that he brings to this young roster. But so far, lighting up the scoreboard right now is Nyx. 4-0 since the rehost, and it's only 2 rounds through, but that's 2 kills a round. And I'll tell you what, for a newer addition to a team, that's a big impact and already a clutch. It's a statement for Nyx and maybe a statement for a new Vipers roster going on forward. But here's a more direct base take from Parabellum, ignoring most of that trophy statue side. They still got some presence over here, Silent and Doc, to be dealing with some of the roamers and actually bringing down Nyx. So just highlighting how impactful his roam presence has been. That no longer to be the case and on the board, but Maxilli, a little bit of response, a little bit of bark for his bite on his own over here.
Say, at least that C4 mid-round is going to find some headway here for Vipers. The info as well, the black eye cameras. Good job now being able to take care of Doc. Maybe not the most impactful operator for this top floor attack, but if you wanted to start looking towards that first floor, you can make a lot of vertical destruction and maybe also help deal with some of those roamers in the early round as well. Parabellum still looking to maybe have some impact here on that first floor. Both Blaz and Packer are still lying in wait. A logic bomb gets deployed just to double check, make sure no one's playing too close for uncomfort here for Parabellum. And Packer, not too sure if he's actually aware that someone's over by living room and library. At least Blaz could be aware of that potential threat, but so far it's a bit of a game of cat and mouse here between both teams.
Complete stalemate. Who's going to make the first move? It's going to be Maxilli. No. A quick peek out to the hallway, trying to hold it, and actually it's the bait from Blaz who'll lose out the fight, and Maxilli with a great vote of patience there to be able to get that fried creators as well. The 2 roamers for the Vipers going nuclear this round, really being a big problem and a big pain for Parabellum. Twist will bring one down on the cooling, so it's Silent who's found their way through the bomb site and actually has passed all the way through in a study now, but their position well alerted to by the defenses. Maxilli more than likely has one of those black eye cameras that are providing perfect information. Nyx, you can see highlighted on that camera, and great information and another good defensive round for Vipers, taking their 3rd in a row and 3rd round since the rehost.
Yeah, and all things considered, it was a pretty decent start by Parabellum. They were able to find that opening kill into Nyx. They were starting to find those angles over in study once again, but when trying to rotate around a bit closer towards that master side of the map, trying to lurk in that first floor, that wasn't making any ground for Parabellum. They weren't able to win those 1-for-1 gunfights on either the Jaeger, who was in the corner of library. He won that altercation against Packer, and then Blaz as well, losing the fight to, I believe it was Maxley, who was still playing underneath as well, despite, Parabellum maybe being in a spot to take that 50-50 gunfight. It was still a slight advantage for Vipers overall because they just have to waste time, and eventually Parabellum, they still need to make that first move. So good intuition on Vipers for just playing passive, allowing Parabellum to fall into that death trap, so to speak. And now Parabellum being down, 3 rounds in a row, they're looking to take a timeout to reassess the situation and maybe keep things stable before heading into the second half.
These are both teams that I think as of late have found more success on their defense really than attack, but Vipers fighting 3 in a row for Parabellum and no adjustments, no adaptations to be made by PB. That's a concern, and I think it's a perfect time for VBM, the coach, to go ahead and call that timeout, recall the troops and say, hey, we need to get this round, but it'll be the ultimatum round because after a timeout, you really need to get that win, and if you don't find that round win, then it's concerning because you've already utilized your sole resource of trying to make impact adjustments in the game. And that's what one of the cool things about kind of the 6-second timeout feature. You get to talk to your coach, you get that good insight, but more importantly, you get to make those adaptations. And that's what Parabellum needs right now to be successful because they've yet to make those adaptations to how Vipers are playing against them, which is very aggressive. And Parabellum are struggling with the Vipers' roam.
Yeah, off the back of that early aggression that we saw for Dining Room back in round number 2 and the information that Vipers have now been cultivating with the help of those Mozzie pests, the Gersmots, and more specifically, the black eye cameras. That's the big elephant of the room here, really, for Vipers. They've been able to find those kills to, set the tempo in their direction. And again, we talked about Parabellum when they're at a stagnant position in like a 3v3 for an execute. If they're at a disadvantage when trying to get into the bomb site, it is just wraps for them. And we have clearly seen that from round number 4, round number 3 as well to an extent, and at the very least round number 2, because again, it was that 4 versus 1, only 30 seconds left for Kool-Aid as all of his teammates died to a flank of Maxley. So if we can continue to see that tempo being set early on for Vipers, that timeout might just mean nothing.
Exactly, and the information game has been there so much for the Vipers that Parabellum, they're going to bring plenty of information to Nile Ops. You've got Blaz, who's on the Twitch, trying to get rid of some of those default cams early on. You've also got Packer bringing the IQ, trying to get rid of those black eye cameras. So Parabellum relying heavily on denying the information that Vipers has been so wealthy of so far in this first half of the match.
30 seconds gone. Parabellum may be looking to at least have a bit of entryway from the pantry side of the map, but so far it's just a couple spots out by the attack, and the rest of them are moving their way a bit closer towards Mudroom again, trying to get rid of this horizontal presence done by Vipers over in from living room and library. They've got Packer, who is at least, or pardon, Blaz, sorry, who's on the Twitch now. Packer was on Twitch earlier in the game. He was on a light cutoff, but now is moving a bit closer towards that top floor extension, as Parabellum are still just, you know, in the info phase of their attack, looking to double check to see if there's anyone that is, you know, currently holding by Asher or even over towards the landing position before they want to hop in and make any huge gambles.
And to highlight, Blaz, 0 for 4, including the rehost. One of those impact players for Parabellum, so important, obviously coming from France and being from another region. They've been someone that's made huge impact and huge moments, but Silent and Kool-Aid walking on in through laundry. I don't know if Creators is quite aware. We saw him set up a Valkyrie camera inside of there, but maybe not. That rotate actually helping out Parabellum more than Vipers, and Silence just made their way on into the bomb site. Complete explosion to go through, but quickly Vipers are able to deal with the threat, but now they've been recalled back to the bomb site and they're getting pinched further and further. Blast coming from behind to find his first kill of the match, and now might be able to find more, as again Vipers will choke out. Rotations coming through. Poison will actually drop the diffuser in the bomb site, now has control and leverage, but all of these horizontal angles that have been made have forced Poison into this corner. He's in a 1v3 and has to find more members of Parabellum, but it's not going to happen. Kool-Aid from above, or Doc rather from above, able to bring down the smoke, and that's the information. And Parabellum with a great round recovery after their tactical timeout.
Yeah, the call to just hop in from laundry room and just see what they can try to accomplish was not the worst idea, since Vipers were still trying to focus on some of that top floor presence that Parabellum was currently pushing out. And also with Parabellum having that top floor control, you're not as susceptible to those flanks or even the vertical being used against you. Sure, you had, you know, Poison flanking up above towards the late round, but there had already been so much success by Parabellum. They were in that 3 versus 1, so they could have someone just walk back up red stairs, or if there is still someone on that top floor, they can also just retake the hatch, and then you've got a really deadly crossfire when you're already at that huge man advantage. So again, good opportunity spot by Parabellum to slowly try to close that gap, but they need one more clean round in this first half to make it even.
Parabellum so far, at least coming back off of that round. Very well done. Ring around the rosy throughout laundry between Poison and Kool-Aid and Silent as well, but a great call to just go on and hit the site, and that's what Parabellum needs to do more of. They did a very good job of that in round 1. They just kind of hit the bomb site, walked on in. Vipers had no response, no answer. Same thing here in this next and that most recent round, right? Parabellum walking on into the bomb site. Where are Vipers? Where is their recall? And when you can go and surround Vipers and choke them out across different levels of the map, then that's the plan. That's the thing that needs to happen here for Parabellum.
Say, look at the start for another master take. At least for Parabellum, acknowledging that presence, that at least that strength you can have when playing underneath with info. They're looking to also maybe deal with some of those roamers playing over towards dining room and kitchen. Blaz, once again, you highlighted earlier the use of Twitch to break down those default cameras, just weaken the info that Vipers have been thriving off of in this first half, is can at least be a little bit less for wear because of that impact Blaz can now have. Triple wall being attempted to get opened on up, but at least the impact slows down that process, I believe, but not fully destructing those Selmas. You also have the rest rest of Parabellum still looking to start their way over from the Astro side. They notice that no one's playing behind the desk, just someone over by Astro's stairs. So if they get someone to lurk down in that first floor, they could have a really deadly crossfire. And yeah, I think Blaz is just double checking to make sure no one's playing over there. Not 100% sure if he knows where Maxley is currently lying in wait, but again, Parabellum, they're understanding where the openings could be found and what possible risks they might have to worry about. And there it is. They finally caught where Maxley was. The nade gets tossed out and Silent just waltzes in. A nice double kill found by the Ayana. Poison finally retaliates, but he's so low in HP. It's a quick refrag collected by Doc. Packer as well shuts down Twist, now leaving only Nyx at a 1v4. And sure, we've seen him clutch before on this bomb site, but that was a 1 versus 2. And now for Parabellum, the odds are doubled in their favor. And Nyx, still in that post plant, is going to have to do God's work on the Legion and can't get it done. Parabellum get the reverse 2-round sweep and equalize this going in around 7.
It's all about those fast attacks, those explosions rather onto the bomb site, and that's exactly what Parabellum needs to do going forward on their attack, especially in the map 2 of Oregon. They're going to have to do the same exact thing. Just go hit the bomb site. Ignore Vipers. Ignore what they're doing on their roam. Some of their best players, their best shooters of Maxillian creators, they're off the bomb site. Same with Twist. He's also off the bomb site, right? So go hit the bomb site. Go cause hell for Poison, for Nyx, right? Go make it ugly for them. If you continue to do that, Parabellum are going to find plenty of success in their attacks. But now as we swap to the defensive half here for Parabellum, we'll have to see how they fare on their map pick. Packer bringing out the Warden, highlighting the Ying pick and potentiality that can be brought up from Vipers. We didn't see Parabellum pick Ying at all. And that was one of Kool-Aid's main operators here so far when we saw that player comparison. And now Vipers might have that chance to pick Ying.
And all things considered, historically for Parabellum, the attacking half on Villa has been their weaker side. So having that, timeout, having a bit of a reset there for the rest of the team, and then keeping things completely level going into the defensive side, where you also have the info ops of that Valkyrie, where you have some potential denial of the Ying play that Vipers likes to bring up with that Warden. Now that's going to be turned in the ballpark of Parabellum. So things could really be turning up better for them instead of worse from what we had a brief glimpse of when Vipers had won 3 straight rounds in a row on their first half. Vipers not really changing at all in terms of lineups from what we saw by Parabellum, for example. I think the only big elephant in the room is maybe Creators on the Zofia, but she is a fantastic op for that range top destruction, especially when you have multiple sets of deployable shields. Now you can utilize those 2 grenades in the pocket of Nyx for something else and not just those deployable shields.
And most definitely. And we'll have to see how Parabellum fare off here on this roam. But Nyx on the entry, of all things, to find their way on through, bringing down Blaz, who's been silenced so far throughout this matchup. And 30 seconds in, already gaining that astronomy control. But Parabellum, their roam more focused on the red stairs. They've got plenty of utility there. 2 ADSs, in fact, and as well the body of Silent, trying to hold on to as much of that control as possible. But I don't know if this is the play for them. Vipers, they're going to have to be able to clear out this utility, but already getting that early initial pick is going to really help them out here.
Was looking to already rotate around, maybe just holding a cutoff angle or maybe heading in towards Study to just do his job on the hard breach. Either way, Vipers, for the most part, are still focusing on this clear beginning over from red stairs. Silent having a plethora of utility to try to waste as much time and resources out of the pocket of Vipers. And in case anyone wants to try to lurk and deal with Silent head on from that first floor, they're going to have to worry about Doc, who's currently assisting the Jaeger by just playing over towards living room to watch his back from the middle portion of that red staircase. Parabellum still just waiting for that initial push up by Vipers, and that might end up being Nyx again on that first floor. He does locate the Valkyrie as Doc just tries to spray on towards that operator, but no connection just yet. Now Doc forced to fall back, but he still wins the gunfight against Maxley, having a bit of assistance, I believe it to be, and a second one lines up for him as well. This roam working wonders for Parabellum, and they haven't even cleared out Silent.
I love the spots for Parabellum. Vipers, something that they struggle with so much, their attacks, and that's exactly the biggest issue right now. They can't deal with Doc down below, and if you're not able to deal with that player, you're not going to be able to clear out the red stairs. The swing's going to come through for the Jaeger, and they'll actually bring down Poison, so Creators, the last alive, tried to go down and help their teammates, but Doc's already rotated away, and so has the rest of Parabellum, as they'll fall back to the bomb site. They'll continue to hold on to the bomb site, and Vipers, on the other end, their attack not so good to start off the round. Creators will do a little bit of damage, but more than likely, maybe we'll find 1, maybe 2, but I think Parabellum have this round under lock.
Yeah, even if Silent dies, it's still a 2 versus 1. Toxic Babes available for Kool-Aid when there's only 20 seconds left on the round. Yeah, this just doesn't seem likely for creators to win. One of those Toxic Babes I had previously mentioned gets deployed by the smoke, so can't even enter in from Skull safely. You'd have to lose a bit of HP and then walk into that potential crossfire. Someone's playing over by the vault doorway, someone in study, and maybe a flank going down. And from 90, no, someone just in the back of bar. 1 kill collected for creators, but there's the immediate trade by Doc, and Parabellum, a flawless roam in that first floor, allowed the rest of their positions to remain alive to make sure Vipers couldn't accomplish much besides really that opening entry kill found by Nyx.
They didn't use their utility, and they didn't have any sort of information really on where the Valkyrie was lurking out below, and Doc just being better, winning out their fights on that first floor, and that was the pivotal impact of the round. And one thing to be a little bit concerned about is Parabellum potentially throwing away that round at the very end. You saw all of their players peeking, trying to go for the kills, and I get it. It's good to be kill hungry and want to go boost some stats, but you nearly costed yourselves the round. I think it was closer than what it actually portrayed on the scoreboard there. Is Zofia creators, if they ended up maybe clipping that guy in bar and getting lucky, swinging around, getting the Valkyrie, it could have actually ended up being a Vipers round, but that's just like a last minute, like, weird point of, like, just be careful about throwing rounds, stuff like that. And Creators throwing his hat in the ring, trying to give a best shot, good job for that. But Vipers, again, struggling with that roam clear, and if they can't deal with Doc down below, if they don't use their utility, then things just not looking on the up for them right now.
Potentially having that changeup of creators on the Dokkaebi could maybe help relieve some of that stress you have for the roam clear. Again, you've got the logic bomb, so if you're in a close vicinity to where a roamer could be starting their defense and you no longer hear that audio call, that could lead to, being just well known that position isn't a problem. All right, Kool-Aid, I respect the vision, but trying to run out with the SMG11 on one of the most valuable operators to stop any kind of execute, definitely a bit questionable, as Nyx will now secure another opening gunfight in this second half successfully. And like I mentioned, that's one of your main stall ops just dead for free. Okay.
If only Jameson was that confident in his fantasy football team, he might have had a better season.
Okay, that's harsh. That might have been out of line.
He still made playoffs. Look, man, I was like 4-12 in that league, but I gatekept Gino from it, and I think I actually helped Kool-Aid get in. So you're welcome, Jameson. If you're listening, you're welcome for gatekeeping people and helping you into playoffs with a measly 60-point week, but maybe a little bit too confident there with the SMG11 to run on out, especially with the smoke. You're not going to have those toxic babes anymore to be able to deny that take coming in from Vipers, but that's if Vipers can even find themselves near the bomb site. Twist to fall after Packer being very aggressive, jumping out of the closet window. What? How is Packer allowed to sit here in this closet position on trophy statuary when Vipers, half of them are here trying to go for a direct take, and now they've all dropped down below, and Nyx, who's actually lighting up the scoreboard for Vipers, someone that you don't typically see light up the scoreboard, but so far is doing so. Concerns, again, for Vipers. Their big-name players not showing up as much as we might expect.
Not too sure the impact you could have of, losing that Habana. You do have one of those panels still opened up on the triple wall. Maybe just having less utility overall. Oh, this could be nasty here for Doc. A beautiful drop down, but he might get caught the wrong time by Nyx. No, he's able to back away, but then re-engages onto Nyx. It's still the trade found for the sledge. Things keeping at a rather equal pace, but at least the surprise factor for Parabellum, that has most certainly been here. We've seen multiple runouts attempted, and some of them succeeded here by Parabellum, and even a drop down by Doc just a moment ago to at least secure 1 kill for his teammates, as the rest of Vipers are still looking to get control of astronomy altogether, and that could maybe help them move their way in towards statuary at the very least. Packer in another rat corner, seeing if someone maybe overextends in the master bathroom, netting him a free kill. Just that game of patience here. In these final 30 seconds, the stuns come sailing out in case someone's close towards that brick's doorway. Poison now entering over from Astro, trying to make space, trying to win his 1-for-1. Creators gets downed off screen. Blaz so low in HP, but it might not matter. He's the doctor to stims himself back up to full HP, and now Packer looking to contest off that deployable shield. 1 kill is found at a triple for Nyx as well. He's still looking to hold on, but he has to ace and has to walk into another brutal position held by Parabellum, as they are looking fantastic at the start of their second half.
Nyx with a solid round there for Vipers, but just not enough. Not able to leverage the aggression coming from Parabellum. Packer seeing him do it against reality TV, jumping out of closet, just as you see Kool-Aid doing so there, but you saw Packer doing it as well and being very aggressive. It's his playground over there, liking to be aggressive, liking to hop out of the closet, waiting for the attackers unsuspectingly to get on drones, and seeing an ally fly out of the window. It's, well, maybe not the first thing that comes to mind on Villa, but something that happens quite a lot, and Packer enjoys doing that. Vipers just being caught off guard, not aware, not ready for it in their attack, their execute, falling short and flopping.
So definitely interested as to how the drone economy was there for Vipers towards the end. I couldn't quite
They had
catch it, but it just,
at
yeah,
least three for one for every person that was alive. So they had plenty of time to go get some of that info for that last minute execute, but
yeah, it just seemed like they were walking in a little blind towards the end. So that's why I kind of begged the question of how their drone economy had looked, because it seemed like they weren't fully prepared to take some of those engagements towards the late round, and also just not being prepared for, again, that kind of aggression Parabellum was looking for in, kind of the early to mid round portions of round number 8, because again, we saw the run out attempted by Packer that ended up finding a kill onto the hard reach player of Twisted was, and then we also had Doc again going down into Nex to then eliminate at least the first grenade player and then being traded out by Nyx. It just seemed like that caught Vipers completely by surprise, but maybe that surprise pick onto the Ying could maybe have the favor returned onto Parabellum, as they don't have a lot of utility, if any utility at all, to stop Poison just running amok with this operator selection.
the only thing that might stop Poison is a flippin' cap can trap.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's really it. There's nothing. There's no one that's going to be able to stop those Candelas from flashing you. There's no Warden being brought out from Parabellum, which they were bringing in the very first round they had, but after that, they haven't shown the Warden. And if Vipers can take advantage of the Ying pick and try to be aggressive, it might actually work out very well for them, as Capcan, Silent, has fallen, and now things already starting off well for Vipers.
Say, this is the third time they've won an opening engagement, yet they haven't won a single attacking round just yet. Really shows that mid-round prowess by Parabellum just to, again, spot those opportunities and maybe get a 50-50 gunfight going their way, just to really slow down and stall Vipers. That probably explains the use of a Ying, just making more and more space with those Candelas, and just overall having ease of access to just getting into the bomb site for a proper execute, maybe trying to work some vertical down next couple seconds as well. Now getting Nyx and Craters up above. This could maybe bode well for Vipers, but there it is. That mid-round presence. Kool-Aid just swings wide and is able to rack up a kill onto the flank watch of Nomad. So maybe if all those air jabs weren't fully deployed, maybe someone could go back up above. And Laz has already done that, but he's began to fall away. Doesn't want to risk his life. He'll just be a nuisance elsewhere, as there's still a minute 10 for Parabellum to get creative.
This is where a team like Vipers struggles in their mid and late round executes. They should have really noticed that Vipers, or that Parabellum rather, on their defense don't have a lot to stop a Ying from just bullying their way on in and trying to be aggressive, flooding on through the bomb site. Instead, they go for this vertical control, they go for this vertical play, and they have to work out all this leverage. But look at Parabellum. They've spread themselves far and thin across the map, all the way in the living room and even library, potentially. Kool-Aid's in the basement. And the only player inside is Packer, who's sitting right next to the laundry wall and has not been dealt with, and is someone who's probably going to be extremely dangerous. The Candelas will come on through, and Poison just trying to get this plant going down on the laundry door. This is where the explosion, the execute goes on through, but Parabellum shines well here as Doc has made their way upstairs, not found through, though, and the plant's gone down.
Oh, Kool-Aid looking to deny it, though, but just cannot find enough shots onto Poison. Still that post-plant position, and Vipers looking clean as ever. Last one collected up for Craters, still playing on that vertical, and you might have made a good point about it, Mason. Just the lack of overall site denial to push back Vipers, that was the major issue there for Parabellum, but you really can't fault them with all that vertical into the bomb site. It's just, you're just asking to get killed if you're really sitting too complacent there.
Vipers, they had a solid round. I mean, using the Ying is exactly what they needed to do. I think they could have done it 10 times faster and potentially didn't really need much of that vertical control at all. Could have just locked them out of the bomb site if they went and held the proper crosses, but still coming out on top of the round. Well done to them. Parabellum, on the other hand, well, they could not retake, and they should have tried to retake upstairs with how much vertical pressure was established. There were air jabs sure blocking them off, but they could have baited each other, and there was only one or two bodies left upstairs, and with how much of the floor had been destroyed there by Vipers rather on their attack, Parabellum could have had a very good chance at potentially winning that retake and winning that post play.
Say, they did have Blaz and Doc look to go back up above and, you know, cause some chaos, kill anyone who's working for vertical. So now it's just the site players. Best case scenario, you've got maybe like a 3v2 or even a, you know, 2 versus 1 retake perhaps for Parabellum, while they also have that vertical to now work against Vipers. But with Blaz being forced off at an early time frame and then Doc being the only defender at one point to be up above, that's what caused problems. It was just a simple numbers game that, you know, Vipers had up above 2-1, both the Buck and Sledge still alive. So sure, Doc was able to connect 1 kill and, you know, stir up the pot just a bit. You still had to worry about Nyx. He found an instant trade. Now you still have that vertical and less defenders overall to then play that retake that Parabellum still needed to have a chance at winning that round. The idea was there on paper, but the execution, it wasn't perfect, and Vipers had already accounted for that potential retake because, again, that's the only real counter you have for a play like that.
Now a direct take here from Vipers. Got the Monty brought, and they're trying to go very direct here. Maxilli! Oh my god! Just decimating Doc in piano, and I mean, on the glass, the Bearing 9 showing just better. Just better, and dealing with the downstairs roamer's presence with ease. The Monty push, though, mostly is I kind of go back to wrap up my point. They're trying to go upstairs. They're trying to go and deal with that main stairs player, that main stairs presence, and push, and that's what Kool-Aid is going to try to do to stop them. But Packer still remains in library and is still a concern here. But Kool-Aid falls, and now Vipers have free way and free leisure to just walk up the main stairs with ease, take the control they want, and they should win this round.
Poison getting ready to start creeping his way upstairs just shortly, but he knows there's still one roamer around somewhere, so he wants to deal with that, and seems like Nyx was there to assist as well. Packer now removed from the equation, and now it's just a 5 versus 2 for Vipers. That first floor clear was immaculate, able to have Maxley just spring in as that, you know, inadvertent entry roll as the glass, and just as I hype you up, you blow yourself up with a grenade. Yeah, well, at least he finds humor from that hubris, but it's still a fairly winnable position for Vipers as a whole. They now locate where Silent is, trying to be an active threat in the Montaigne, but no, it's a blunder. Silent racks up 2, and all of a sudden, things might just get a little more winnable for Blaz, no longer having to worry about that threat of the Montaigne, and now maybe having a bit of a surprise attack on someone playing over by Study, but it seems like Creators has a rough idea that someone could be over by Aviator, so he's not just walking in for free, but there's a swing by Blaz. I was completely wrong. Perfect surprise attack for the Goyo, and now it's just Twist. Sure, he's on full HP, but he's got no proper info. He's got no idea where Blaz is. A beautiful clutch found in Parabellum. Take round 10.
No way. I mean, that's my reaction to this round, right? There's no world that Parabellum should be winning that round. But due to the aggressiveness of Poison on the Monty, dropping the shield on that off vertical angle, is now Vipers are going to be forced to take a timeout, and I think they need to and really reassess their decision making. John, what the hell? Maybe there is no timeout. Maybe there is an accidental blunder, but Parabellum winning that round, I mean, there's no business. There's no right for Silent to go huge there on the main stairs as well. Maxilli blowing themselves up with that nade and piano. I mean, a huge flick right there as you saw, but that nade blowing themselves up, punishing a little bit of Vipers rather, but the entirety of Vipers punishing themselves, lacking that late round information. And again, that slow execute, just biting them in the rear. But again, to highlight and not to knock on Mr. P, but that was just an abysmal play.
I don't even think it was like a bad play. It's just where he ended up unextending his shield. That's what was an issue, because Silent can just look over your head. He's got the vertical advantage there. He's got the technical high ground. What Poison was trying to do was just forcing away the Jaeger and also having him just be more focused on the Montaigne. That way his teammate coming up main can then kill him. Also, not having anyone by Study to help assist with that when you have such a number advantage. I think that was also just a small miscalculation by Vipers, and just in the heat of the moment, it doesn't seem like a bad idea to just take the gunfight 2-1, but that small little hiccup, it gave everything back to Parabellum. Silent finds that double kill, he's finally traded off, and that lack of info we've talked about not only for Parabellum, but also Vipers now in that last round, that's also what allowed a huge 1v2 to be found and confirmed for Blaz.
Yeah, it's more of just the lack of teamwork. Like Poison just did not
Right.
wait for his teammate to walk up the main stairs, and that was the biggest issue. Like, just wait for your teammates. Your teammates are there for you. You're a shield. You're not winning most of those gunfights. Poison is someone I've seen play Monty quite a few times and just get too aggressive sometimes. And in those cases, it really bites Vipers in the rear. Sometimes when he's on the Monty, it does a great job. Does an incredible job of clearing out, being aggressive, being someone that distracts the other team. But in that case and in other cases alone, I've also seen it completely backfire for Vipers, and that being one of the cases.
Minute burned away at the timer for Vipers. Hopefully the timeout will keep them suited well for the rest of this matchup here for Villa, and then eventually moving on later towards Oregon. Not so much a timeout, but just them keeping up the pace against Parabellum. Seems like for Vipers, they're just still taking their time to gather that sweet information before they make any official calls, starting out their attack from the Master overside. Grenade gets tossed out underneath. It does remove that ADS, but Packer is still just comfortably sitting inside of Closet. Nick's gathering even more vertical, and that will give him a good enough angle to find one kill, but Blaz, there on the trade, instantly shuts down Nick's, but you do lose that control over in Closet, so Poison will now hop out. He's expecting a bit of retaliation by Parabellum, so a good read by him, but all things considered, Vipers haven't really covered a lot of ground, and they don't even have the first floor cleared out, too.
If Nyx found that second kill, that would have been incredible. Unfortunately, not able to do so, though. And Vipers, they're shut down stale. 2 minutes have happened, and they barely made their way in the bathroom. Parabellum, on the other hand, when they were on attacks, they were in their bathroom within 30 seconds. Now, maybe a little bit more of a focused defense and playing inside a closet, trying to be annoying and waste as much of that time as possible. But this direct attack from Vipers has not gone to plan. It's been very stale. It's been very slow, and right now, again, they're just lacking. They're not sure what to do. They're puzzled. They're sitting still and silent, able to bring down Twist.
Oh, looking for another as well. This could be a huge play, but Poison heard him swinging from the bricks doorway. Things still tied up 3-3. The swing happens by Craters, and no one's on Astro in time to shut him down. Vipers now up 2 whole players, and they make it 3v0. The timeout working perfectly for them, as although things looked a little rocky, they were expecting Parabellum to, up the ante on that aggression. They were able to swiftly annihilate that and still have an Astro and bricks doorway execute that wasn't that bad.
I'm shocked. They spent so much time and they just kind of waited, but maybe that wait was just the right thing they needed. They changed a little bit of that pace of play. They might have thought that, or Parabellum rather, might have thought that they were going to go and then got aggressive and ended up losing their fights actually to Vipers, who just all exploded, where everyone was able to find a frag on their own and left Doc alone inside of the bomb site. Those C4s not utilized very well, if at all, by Parabellum, and not to slow down the Vipers at all. I think Parabellum would really be successful if they brought out the Goyo. You saw Blaz had that 1v2 just a couple rounds ago on the Goyo, and in this direct hold of the bomb site, someone like a Goyo might be huge and so efficient for Parabellum to use to slow down Vipers from making those quick last-second entries.
Trophy reattempted now for Parabellum to hopefully stave off overtime, and I'd have to agree that stall potential, it just seemed a little lacking there for Parabellum, especially when they lost Packer inside of Closet Room. The second that it went down, you saw Poison immediately hopping in through Closet. Sure, he backed out because he was expecting like a Nitro Cell or something else to maybe push him away and net a kill back for the side of Parabellum. But once that was removed, everyone then just began to hop back in. They start getting control of Master Bedroom, the bathroom, slowly creeping their way, I believe, towards Astro Stairs as well, too, just to double down on this commitment that they're bringing out for that Master over clear, making sure everything is accounted for, and also denying that mid-round aggression by Parabellum pretty well overall. Nets them a couple of 1-for-1s. Now they've got the man advantage, and there is just no one that can stop them from trying to get that plant down or just the general execute overall. But Vipers looking to have even more of an emphasis on this middle floor clear. They have a drone already sailing out here to help enable Nyx, but he's not the only person playing underneath this time.
Nyx has done an incredible job so far in this lurking role, and it's something that he strives well with. I think that I've seen, at least as of recent memory of watching him in Pro League and stuff, I do think he is someone that succeeds when he's kind of able to play solo and just outbrain his opponents. He can also hit his shots, and he's been doing that so far, most definitely in this matchup and needs to find one, if not two picks here for Vipers to try to send themselves into overtime. And again, this reattempt from Parabellum, the same exact push coming through Vipers, but the adjustments have been made by Parabellum. So can Vipers react to the adjustments and be able to make some of their own here in the mid round?
So no one playing over by Closet this time, so it's not an initial threat for Vipers. The C4, though, that could be impactful. It's tossed away, but only brings Poison down to just over 50% of his HP. No confirmed kill on the Nomad. Things still remain that 5-on-5, and now there's a little bit less utility to use in the late round, but Parabellum still have a plethora of that previously mentioned utility. Maxley playing underneath, I believe, scores 1 kill onto Silence, so the Wamai is now removed, but at least for map control, there hasn't been a boatload of it still for Vipers in this final minute.
Parabellum, they're fighting strong though, holding onto the bomb site, but they've been backed into so many corners right now, and with the below pressure being established, the stuff to finally come off the wall here is the Electric Claw has been dealt with. I believe it became helpful with a nade over the wall here by creators, but here we are, 40 seconds boiling down left in the round, and Parabellum trying to hold on. Vipers need to explode on, but the smoke grenades to come on through.
Say Kool-Aid eventually down, that last Toxic Babe still in his back pocket, so once these 5 or 7 seconds are elapsed, you can see that aggression really begin to spring up by Vipers as they are short on time. The same thing falls up for Blaz, though, as some stuns begin to hop into the bomb side of Trophy Room. Twist good for the first opener. Doc is able to resurge, but the rest of Vipers remain clean for that execute. No one even able to flank from Master once again, as the Habana is still there, keeping overwatch for the rest of Vipers as they send us to overtime.
Both of these teams seemingly struggling on those direct take defenses, trying to hold strong. Parabellum just not able to do so, and Vipers, their attacks looking better, honestly, than what I've seen in the past, John. They've looked solid, and I think that a lot of that comes off of the backing of Nyx. I think that most recent addition, and now with some scrim time potentially with the Vipers roster, they look better. I don't think that they're clean cut and dry and ready yet with their attacks, and to not see Ying played as much still by them is something curious, as I think it's an operator that they do very well with, and they often force their executes to go with very well. But you know what? It's working. Their attacks are going much better. These nades from below and their lurking plays are working very well. And Vipers, so far, they're firing on all cylinders. Parabellum lacking in those last couple of defensive rounds.
Just not overcomplicating anything either. For Vipers, they have, 1 or 2 people lurking underneath with some info as well to make sure no one can have any C4s or any good info to play off of for when someone hops into Master with all that flooring being soft, or even just staying underneath to play for, post-plant denial. Anything like that, Vipers, they already have that taken care of off of their checklist in the beginning, in the first minute 30 or so. And the rest of the offense is still just focused on getting simple map control like Master, bathroom, and bedroom, along with hopping in a closet. So it isn't really a lot of the map that Vipers has to focus on for that trophy attack. They just take pretty much a corner of Villa, and that's what they set their eyes on. And with Parabellum just not having any sort of response, no kind of aggressive roamers to deal with those people in the first floor in that minute 30 mark, it sets the precedent for Vipers that they're going to have a pretty solid round throughout the whole 3 minutes that they have for the action phase. And speaking of that aggression by Vipers, it's shining in once again. A nade gets tossed out with some stuns just to keep away anyone trying to come back into the bomb site, but it's not even an execute that Vipers looking to take, just maybe some sort of opening gunfight for free, and they almost did so. They really did take a good chunk of HP off a Silence pool.
Did they waste a gas grenade there from Kool-Aid as well? I mean, already, to be able to get rid of some of that late time denial, Vipers, they might have set themselves up for a great attack. They got rid of some of those Volcans as well as the gas grenade there from Kool-Aid. So it's going to make it so much easier here for Vipers when they go to blow up onto the bomb site to get in. And that's great for them. They're already forcing Parabellum back as well. So Vipers so far so good on their clear as long as they can stride free of these Captain Traps and a potential C4 lurking from below from Packer. Vipers, they've made good progress, but now to deal with the red stairs and 90 congestion.
Say it's only impact grenades actually for Packer, shockingly enough. Maybe he'll want to just save those for the actual plant denial instead, rather than looking for a direct kill with that C4. Speaking of kills though, Silence still playing over by Red. He does get a spray onto Nyx, Finds a nice little headshot, and then he begins to fall off of that red staircase, knowing that it's only a matter of time before the rest of Vipers begin to push in through that boar entrance, begin to work over on the landing side, and eventually looking to hunt down someone who could still be over in red stairs potentially. And we talked about that utility already burned away by Vipers in that early round. It's not going to bite them in the rear anymore because, like we mentioned, it's already been destroyed. So now they have even less to focus on. The only big concern that I really see here for Vipers, besides maybe a C4 tossed out by Doc and the Toxic Babes, obviously, is having Packer still playing underneath completely uncontested in these final 30 seconds. He might be looking to even go for a flank on red stairs, which could honestly be even more damaging since there just aren't many players looking to watch that flank as Blaz and Doc just smoke the packs of poison and twist. There was somebody watching the flank for a good chunk of time. That was Maxley, but now he's completely focused on the bomb site as he's one of the only 2 attackers left alive in this 2 versus 4, and they are soon to be looking down at red time. An impact grenade goes off, so there's really no chance of getting that default plant down. Silent gets taken care of, but there's the flank by Packer, a little late, but it still finds success, and Kool-Aid with the Mossberg cleans things up on the creators, and Parabellum take back the lead.
Coming back with the round just in time for Parabellum, and Vipers, I mean, nearly able to come our way with that round and destroying some of that information and that denial, but it came down to the gas grenades being chucked in by Kool-Aid that stopped Vipers from seeing them explode on through maps. You saw just for a moment there was a slight hesitation from Vipers. They wanted to go and just rush through maps, go take the site and cause hell. They had an even man advantage on site with the player downstairs on red trying to flank on up. I believe that was Packer on the Capcan trying to go ahead and go for that flank, but the rest of Vipers were just ready to go on and explode. But that gas grenade went through and it called it off. Vipers were like, wait, we can't go through. We're going to take too much damage. We're going to soak, and we're not going to be able to see the guys we're trying to shoot at. That gas grenade, absolutely pivotal for Parabellum to come away with that round and send themselves on an overtime match point.
So Aviator in games back on the defense for Vipers now as they go into the second round of overtime. We did see this round be swiftly, or this site be swiftly won, pardon, by Parabellum all the way back in round number 1. That was off of just acknowledging Vipers and their lack of, I guess, general map denial. So they get a lot of control in the early round. They're already set up inside of, study, balcony, and pushing from trophy and statuary side to then go into 90 hallway and also skull. And once they realize that there isn't a lot of utility left for Vipers to really keep them away, they just hop in the bomb site, look for 1-for-1. So Parabellum, hopefully they can replicate some of that, early round, aggression that we did see towards the very beginning and the latter end of their first half, at least for their sake, to maybe head into Oregon with a good chip on their shoulder. If not, if Vipers can also keep up that solid info game with the help of those black eye cameras and still keep their roamers alive and well for the mid-round, maybe we see a full 15er here for Villa.
More than likely, I think we will. I think that both these teams have actually been fairly decent on their attacking halves, and their defensive halves almost lacking on the other end, and contrary to that. But we'll have to see how Parabellum's attack stacks up here against Viper's defense, and maybe they're able to hold on true and go us and send us to round 15. Twist, though, is going to be the main player to contest with the main stairs, and they'll take a healthy amount of damage as they've already been in this very heavy engagement with Silent, who's more than likely going to win it. 1 HP here for the Womani on the main stairs, but the flashes come through, blinding their own teammates.
Oh,
Packer with the shotgun! Lucky up the main stairs, he finds 2 as the shotgun pick from Packer goes huge for Parabellum, and Vipers now on the back foot.
And there's that explosivity quite literally found by both Packer and Silent playing on main stairs directly by Packer with the shotgun, completely throwing a wrench in the machine of Vipers and their main stairs extension. Now they're looking at a pretty rough spot in this 4 versus 2, but they do bring things a little bit closer. A good kill found over by Vault, looking into study from Creators 416, and Packer now looking to maybe close that distance once again. He has the shotgun. He is on the hunt. Some damage dealt on the Creators. He's up close and personal. A triple kill now for Packer, having so much fun with this SAS shotgun, leaving only Nyx in a 1 versus 3. He's got the C4, but that's put over towards default. Kool-Aid's planting behind the bomb chassis. It doesn't do a single thing, and the second he gets off that plant, he gets the final kill for the counter, and Parabellum send us out of map 1.
He's a menace with that damn shotgun. I mean, who would have thought? The sausage being brought out there, and Packer to go huge, but Parabellum to win out the map. I mean, if you want to take main stairs, that's a 101 course in education right there. Flash the guy, Finkastim yourself up, and just run at him with a shotgun. Bringing that even contention, but Parabellum to win their map pick 8-6 against Vipers. John, I said that this was going to be a close one, and these maps already going hand in hand.
And Oregon as well, it can be that same even playing field between both Parabellum and Vipers. I definitely am interested to see if we have Parabellum actually decide to maybe ban that Ying, because Vipers brought it out when they were desperate to get the ball rolling on some of those attacking rounds, more specifically when they were dealing with that dining room and kitchen defense. And for Ying, she is a lot more viable on Oregon in comparison to Villa. She's great on both bomb sites, but if there is one map you could think of as bringing out a Ying to help clean up your executes, I think Oregon would be a perfect example of that. So for Parabellum to maybe remove that, that could leave some pretty huge obstacles to fill over here for Vipers going into map 2.
Most definitely. I think that Parabellum might have to get rid of that Ying, and Vipers, maybe the same can be said for them as well. We'll see really what comes down to Parabellum. If I remember correctly, they definitely utilized Ying a pretty healthy amount here in week 1, and maybe we'll see that happen again here. I don't know, though. I don't think that we'll see Ying go up to the ban phase, because I think both of these teams will crutch through it, but maybe that'll be the exact reason why we see Ying on the board. But we'll go ahead. We'll take a couple minutes and recollect ourselves, get some drinks of water, take a little break, and we'll be back for map 2, Oregon, coming up soon.
Pollard's on a double though, and he finds a third to the smoke.
Just enough. Getting into 3K with the up.
With 3 seconds left, Final lands the pre-fire. Nobody can kill him in time.
And he clutches it out. What a play from the alibi as the lobby player goes unchecked.
After a constant back and forth between Parabellum and the Vipers, we finally had a victor of map number 1, that being the team that ended up selecting us to head over into Villa. Parabellum will take map 1 8-6 after a pretty close contention match between Vipers, but it's what we had expected, Mason, because both these teams are pretty familiar with Villa. It's a default map for them at this point.
Yeah, both teams being fairly successful on Villa as of late, but Parabellum just barely edging out Vipers. I mean, the 3-3 split at the half, and then to go on 3-3 split into overtime, and finally, Parabellum able to string together a couple rounds just as they had did at the end of their attack. And I'll tell you what, John, we saw some interesting things coming out from both teams, some interesting plays for sure. Nyx for Vipers definitely playing very well on that secondary. I believe the second on the frag department there for Nyx. So showing up well and in play for this new roster change for the Vipers. But Parabellum, on the other hand, making the plays that they needed, making the adjustments just barely enough at the end. And some of those unorthodox plays really showing out, and Parabellum coming out on top.
Say both for Parabellum and Vipers, we did see a lot of last second adaptation. I'd have to say one of the bigger elephants in the room of that was Vipers trying to bring the Ying every now and again, along with having a bigger focus on the opening lurks. That's how we had people like Nyx secure a lot of his opening engagements. He'd be someone who was rather proactive on the Iana. He's the first point of contact, someone to deal with those really pesky roamers, whether they be starting over in statuary or if he's playing somewhere underneath to then deal with someone extending over in the closet or someone over by Memo/China. And although we had a lot of entries, actually won by Vipers, Parabellum, they didn't really seem to care. They would just play better in the mid round, especially when Vipers had moments where they were still struggling with dealing with some of those roamers, despite having people solely focusing on that first floor department.
Something that the Vipers struggle so much on both attack and defense the mid round, and Parabellum, they were just barely better in some of those moments, but definitely showed to be stronger and more prevalent. Blaz, though, to highlight on the entry, 0 for 3, and not a great performance from him. Hopefully, he'll step up here on Oregon for map number 2, but other than that, I would say that Parabellum played pretty damn solid in that first map. I think Vipers are a tough opponent, especially on some of these stock standard default maps. Parabellum spend their time maybe on other maps. You know, they definitely, we've seen, as you and I were kind of talking before the match, we've seen them play other maps, such as Skyscraper and other things to kind of flurry in that they have to practice, versus Vipers, they really stick to some of these stock standard default maps.
So in terms of what we are to expect on Oregon, do you think we'll see that major awakening by Vipers where they turn out a little less default and try to get more creative against Parabellum? Or do you think they'll just keep to what they're probably comfortable with here on one of the most played maps in the competitive scene?
I think we saw some of that aggression, some of those crazy plays come out from Vipers on Villa, and I think they have to do the same thing here on Oregon. I think they need to go take those fights and not allow Parabellum to go for the execute. I think Parabellum is a team that can succeed and excel when they go for those plants and things of that nature. But, well, going into Oregon, we'll have to see if Vipers will be able to do so.
Say this was the map where Vipers had an incredible showing against 6 Karma. They took this map 7-3, whereas Parabellum, I believe one of the last times we saw them go on this map, their defensive half was flatlined by S2, an up-and-coming T3 team, so to speak, that has already been promoted into the playoffs from, I think, a week ago now it's been. So they're still riding high as ever, just staring down at everyone else that still has to play in SCS before playoffs truly begin. But now, speaking of new beginnings, we'll take a look at the operator bans that have just started. Flores, once again removed, followed up by the Nook. So far, nothing too different. Oh, just kidding. We lied to you. It is the Ying, but it was banned by Vipers. That's the more interesting part, I'd have to say.
Yeah, curiously enough, for Vipers to bring out the Ying and get rid of her entirely. But that's also not a big surprise, because I know that Parabellum also rely on that Ying, especially here on Oregon, to help their attacks really function and go ahead and put a punctuation on some of their attacks. Kate off the board and a zombie to follow. So Parabellum keeping with the theme of keeping those Kiba barriers off the map, and Kaid to fall off the board. It'll make it a little bit easier to open up some of the walls and hatches potentially here by Parabellum.
Andre first up on the board, it seems, for Parabellum. Despite the Ying being removed, it does seem like Doc is still opting to go in for the Warden. Actually, now it's Blaz who's rotated onto that role instead. Still not a horrible operator. Again, you've got a 1.5 optic, so if you're anchoring or taking longer range engagements, you're going to have a pretty solid gun to do that. And you also have the ability to bring out either a deployable shield or a nitro cell, which both pieces of utility are fantastic for this basement floor bomb site, where you tend to see a lot of teams still opting to bunker up and just utilize their own gadgets to waste a lot of time and resources against their opponents. Not only that, but the smart glasses, again, if you're playing on that deployable shield, you might not need those ADSs or magnets as much as somebody else would, because you can just flat out deny those stuns with your own primary gadget, maybe get aggressive to go for a gunfight when someone's, gunned down, having their utility out instead. So that could maybe allow you to crack onto some of Viper's potential weaknesses as they're still trying to set up for that execute.
We'll have to see here how things end up panning out for Vipers for their first execute. Parabellum, they weren't great here on their defenses the first week of SCS and their first matchup against S2. So now they have a better chance of at least providing some healthier and stronger defenses. Kool-Aid, though, one of those Volcans to go away from the shotgun of Packer who brought away, but the Monty being brought up by Poison yet again. We'll see if he stays a little less aggressive and waits for his teammates this time around.
You've got enough hard breach with both the Buck and Montaigne available to get most of those hatches opened up. And again, with a Cade ban being available, you're not going to have to really worry about someone being able to keep those hatches opened up. So definitely a good idea to just have enough hard breach to, again, get those hatches opened up to have the rest of your execute really flourish. And it seems like for Vipers, they are just starting to poke and prod a little bit towards the back end of that basement floor. You've got at least the Montaigne on back stairs providing a ton of info, while the rest of the offense is looking to maybe clear out Meeting Hall and get that hatch opened up, but they had no clue Blaz was still playing up above. A beautiful double kill confirmed by the Warden, and he gets out of dodge scot-free. Not a single lick of damage done to Blaz, as he's now back in the bomb site, finding so much damage in the first minute 20.
For Blaz, who had no entries on map number 1, how about that? 2 to start off the map here of Oregon, and that's exactly what Parabellum needs if they want to close this one out nice and early and send us all to bed sooner rather than later. But Vipers, they still have a chance here. They've got poison on the Monty, and they could use that operator as leverage to try to get themselves in the bomb site creators, and Nyx that will need to do God's work trying to clear out these players from Parabellum. But Kool-Aid stuck behind his own fire, actually. Barely able to hang out. Poison alone, though, so his teammates have abandoned him, and things for Parabellum looking good, and Vipers on the other end, I don't think that their chances for this attack are too successful.
With a toxic smoke, one found by Packer despite it saying a triple kill, and now it's only up to Poison in a 1 versus 3, finally out of the back staircase, but he walks right into the lion's den of Parabellum, is off the back of a great double kill found by Blaz. It weakened the rest of Vipers, and that slowly dwindled down into their first round loss.
Parabellum? Blaz. Really, I mean, was kind of the key factor there in shutting down Viper's attack, and that was just due to a lack of Vipers being on a drone. There's a drone, literally, that Blaz walked right over there in meeting. No one looked at it at all, and he was able to get 2 freebies, not even cut off it from running away. I don't think that Twitch Creators was able to stop him there, and unfortunately, Parabellum just, well, they're able to get away with that round. Blaz really just running away with that one. Vipers, on the other hand, leaving Poison alone as the Monty on the back stairs is not exactly what you want here in those 3v5 scenarios. You don't really want a Monty at all in those 3v5 scenarios, and if you're going to allow for someone like Blaz to go and run around you and run amok of your attack, then, well, yeah, you're not going to do well, especially in those 3v5s.
Say it is little shocking that Vipers just had no info where Blaz was playing at, despite him still being like pretty close to being on that middle floor. And not only that, but they had a nomad. So all that map control they had gathered just went down the drain because there were no air jabs deployed over by Split that could have maybe found a huge opening kill for Vipers, and in general just making sure they don't lose 2 people for free. Blaz quite literally just walked in a meeting, got 2 kills, and then went back in the bomb site, and now Vipers have really no chance of coming back from that round, because with the lack of any genuine pressure on backstairs besides Poison, you can have someone in Harry Potter to make sure there's someone looking at that barrel's doorway, helping the person by elbow, but at least Vipers make up for that in the entry department now in round number 2. You already have creators striking a good kill onto Doc, so one less C4 that you're going to have to worry about during the execute, and also just setting the tempo in the right direction, which is something that Vipers would always like to have, because again, we talked about that stagnation in the execute. If they have a man advantage, there is far less stagnation.
Lots of C4 off the board, and I heard the sound of someone's leg cracking. It's creators. Zofia to be struggling and thriving in pain there inside of armor. He'll be revived by Twist, but one of those things that just kind of pisses you off for the rest of the round is when you step into a frostbite and you're like, great, I'm on 20 HP. I'm such an idiot. Why didn't I check for that? Like, those are the things that go through some players' heads whenever you step into one of those bear mats, and that'll happen. However, Vipers, they've got good control so far. They've made their way up through Attic, and Parabellum already down a man. Vipers with plenty of control, and I think so far they're in the driver's seat for this round.
Well, Blaz gets a good kill onto the Habana. At least the back wall has still been opened up by Poison, and if he really needs to rotate around to help over by that closet wall, he can do so, still having an extra thermite charge at his disposal. Might be looking to do so in just a couple of seconds, but he still wants to help assist Maxley as long as he can, droning him out. That way Maxley has more info for the mid to late round when he wants to start looking, or lurking, sorry, as that Nook roll. About a minute to go, so still plenty of time for Vipers to set up. And with creators over by Master Bedroom, he can not only make sure that, no one's getting cheeky over by Trophy, but he can also help to reassure that Attic is up for the taking for the rest of Vipers that are still over on that northern side of the map. Also allowing Poison to rotate a bit closer to Master without having to go from the exterior position, having to repel, wasting even more time. So now he can get this back wall opened up, and with creators still alive, they can make sure that Mute Jammer isn't going to stop it as well. 2 new openings now gathered for Vipers, but Packer playing up close, has the complete jump against Poison. Blaz finally springs up though, finds 1 kill, but so far that's the only response that Parabellum has for this execute. But here comes Silent creeping up White Stairs. He could be a huge impact player to help assist Kool-Aid. He's got this crossfire, someone coming in from Attic could be shut down almost instantly, and same thing for Nyx, but the plant is going down. Nyx on the rotate, C4 deployed. Creators looks down at just the wrong time, but Nyx still wins his 1-for-1, desperately low in HP and even lower on time. Kool-Aid whips out the shotgun, and Parabellum now up 2 major rounds on their defensive half.
Vipers should have gotten away with that round. I think they would have had creators not stepped into that bear mat earlier on, being one of those entry operators of Zofia and being down with 20 HP, especially as a 3 armor now, and would have taken, or at least been able to take potentially even an extra bullet from the defenders. Not able to do that, not when you're 20 HP, and you don't have the luxury of being confident when you're walking in, and it forced creators to have to be that man going for the plant. And he wasn't confident, especially in the coverage, and as well as that C4 that narrowly took away his life when he was going for the plant. Instead, he tried to swing and ended up losing his life there. So Vipers 0 for 2, Parabellum 2-0, and honestly, their defenses have been fairly solid. That Master one a little shaky as they let Vipers get away with a little bit too much control, but they're able to bite back in that round, and thanks to their utility for sure.
And the big problem there for that 2 versus 2 was the lack of time, so that forced creators to be gunned down, sticking the plan, and also because of that, Nyx is in a really bad spot to worry about both the player and kids, and also the person who has now been realized to be over by White Stairs. That's probably the main reason why creators got off the plant in the first place. He heard the audio call that Silent was top white, so he gets off, tries to work a 1-for-1 that he needs, or else he'll probably die while sticking that diffuser. Now they've got case control, and because he's low in HP and isn't even looking at Silent correctly because the audio has, kind of dried away from the last time he expects someone to be on White Stairs, it nets a free kill for Silent essentially, and now Nyx is stuck in a 2 versus 1 where there is good trade potential by Parabellum, and that's basically what happens because Nyx is just not in a good position after killing Silent to then post up and then kill Packer, who's got just boatloads of natural coverage there with the Mossberg as well when Nyx is already so low in HP. Now Viper's looking to deal with this small tower extension where Blaz is basically just here to not necessarily die, but he is in a death spot. He's going to just try to waste as much time and resources as he can and maybe even work a kill if he can do so. But That's not going to happen. Nyx, I assume on an upside down rappel angle, is going to find at least one kill, but another Frost man. And they had a C4 waiting for it too. So now the Osa has been eliminated. An even bigger kill found by Parabellum in comparison to losing Blaz, who again was expected to die.
Expected to lose all of that utility, expected to lose Blaz, but it should have wasted more time. Unfortunately, Blaz just dying to that upside down rappel and succumbing to the nature of the attack, losing their life early. But the trade to come through, bringing down the Osa being one of those focal points here for Vipers on this attack, it would have been huge to have that shield and be able to walk up through with that Talon shield and plant just behind it, as well as the smoke grenades or EMP impacts that could have been brought out by Poison. Instead, now Vipers, they've got a lot more to deal with. It's going to be very tricky to deal with this heavy mirror setup and very far back defense that Parabellum has brought.
Not only that, but Vipers, they haven't really cleared out any vertical players that you could maybe see for this bomb site. There's a really nasty pixel angle. Someone can hold through the hatch, I believe, to make sure no one can plant behind the bomb chassis of Dining Room. Not only that, but the mirror window providing so much information and really forcing back Vipers as well, because they don't want to walk in front of that black mirror is going to just be such a hassle for Vipers, especially since they don't have that cover of the Talon shields, with Poison being dead. So trying to really make that space is going to be 10 times more difficult now for Vipers. And speaking of space, Packer might be looking to take some here. He's getting rather aggressive by the Showers hallway. Doc catches one off screen. Now a 2K, technically speaking, here for the Frost. And again, we look at Packer. He's so close to Nyx, but it seems like the Sledge was fully aware of that position. Maxley as well gets rid of Kool-Aid, creating more space now for Nyx to potentially hop into the bomb site soon, and another flank might be needed, this time by Doc. And Silent as well, not too confident in himself, maybe trying to work that vertical, so he'll walk back down the staircase of white to help assist his teammates, because Kratos is planted so deep that no one could work for vertical to stop that. Speaking of Silent, he's been eliminated as well. It's all in the hands of Doc. He racks up. No way! And no, they line up for Doc. A major ace found for the Frost, and a huge upset for Vipers.
The Frost unaccounted for, coming from behind. The shower hall flank went well enough, and letting it rip was Doc, as all of the Vipers players remaining line themselves up plain and free. Nyx with a big round for themselves, but unfortunately for Vipers, just not able to close it out. They could not account for Doc. The Frost walking all the way through small tower, information lacking, and Parabellum sweeping their defensive half.
And I mean, just what a brilliant flank as well by Doc, when you would least expect it, trying to reclaim Showers hallway. I mean, that's the best case scenario, with someone playing close towards that. Showers rotate, heading between the bomb site as well. Someone just getting off the plant, looking at that doorway as they had eliminated Silent just a second ago. Everyone's going to be high prioritization in that one direction. So Doc just getting behind everyone's defenses, just being in no man's land, so to speak, able to line up every single attacker that was left alive. That was beautiful for Parabellum. And Vipers are now forced to take a timeout because they just cannot connect the dots here on their attacking half. And we talked about that forward momentum that can also carry on into your second half. If Vipers have a really poor attacking side here on Oregon, they might be in really tough trouble when moving on the defensive side. Although we could probably see this be more defensive favored for the whole map number 2, it's still nice to have at least, 2 to 3 round wins under your belt before you go on your own defensive half, because now you just have more room for error. Parabellum are just looking to eliminate as much room for error that Vipers could have.
Vipers tend to be more successful in their defensive half, but not 6-0 defense or successful, that's for sure. If Parabellum continue this stride up, all they're gonna need is one attack to close things out. So I mean, seriously, Parabellum winning those rounds, huge for them. Vipers on the other end, not so good. They really need an answer here, especially on basement. They need to make something happen, and right now it's a lack of information, a lack of drones. Maxilli out here to bring the blitz. Something is going to happen here in this round for sure.
Blaz as well, still in that Warden, depending on where he is, could really help hard counter the blitz if it's still a locked-in selection for Maxley. Seems like that might be the case, although I would be interested to see how Vipers want to implement that, besides just maybe rushing down in from, again, bunker doorway. That is the staple starting point for a blitz. But the rest of Viper's lineup, it seems like they're going to want to still take their time. You still have someone on flank watch, that being Poison with the Nomad. You still have someone to get those hatches opened up. So maybe it'll be something a little more on the late round to have Maxley on the Blitz, more of just a surprise pick rather than just, blitzkrieging in, literally and figuratively as Blitz to just cause chaos from the get-go. It's just something they're going to want to save on.
Vipers appear to use their first round as a setup. They're going for almost the same exact thing. Nick's lurking here in bunker, but this time around, they're going to bring Maxilli coming and steam and rolling on through. As long as Nick's can stay alive in this position, that's the biggest thing. Making sure that his presence is well known and the rest of Vipers, to go through, get into meeting hall, set up those flanks, try to open that hatch. That is what Vipers are going to bank off of. They're trying to set up Parabellum, give them a false confidence of, okay, this is the same exact thing we just saw. But then, bam, here comes Maxilli out of left field with the blitz.
Well, a minute has now burned away. Seems like Vipers are definitely going in for that slower approach. Air jab's now actually deployed, so Blaz is not going to get away with highway robbery like he did back in round number 1, even when put to split. So yeah, 0 chance. And Creators is watching Laundry Stairs walk it. I'm glad, Vipers. I'm glad you've learned from your lesson, but might be a little bit too terrified of what Blaz could accomplish on the Warden pick. Even its Kairos charge attempted to be deployed to maybe force back the person who'd be by Barrel's doorway. Kool-Aid now expecting that to be a legitimate issue, so before another impact grenade needs to be wasted, he'll already rotate back into pillars, so a really good precautionary measure done by Parabellum, so they're not going to be giving up that opening entry for free, which has happened a handful of times, especially against Vipers, but finally the Blitz will rear its ugly head inside a blue bunker, but only gets the person off the deployable shield. It's still Parabellum to hold on as tight as ever. They're cleaning house against the Vipers as they're up a player still. Now the Blitz is gone. What an impact play by Packer. He's up close with the Mossberg once again. His favorite combination. Name a better duo. You probably can't, as now Creators is in a 1v2 trying to recover the case, but Blaz is sitting at Iconic expecting that 4 rounds in a row collected for Parabellum.
No ace clutch in sight there for Creators from Vipers, and Parabellum steaming rolling array right now with their defensive half. They struggled in week 1 with their defenses, but here in week 3, it's very different, and Vipers just have no answer for Parabellum right now. They continue to strive and stave on through, and Parabellum want to send themselves into the next round.
I mean, just again, the precautions that Parabellum is really going through here, making sure Vipers just don't get a freebie on any kind of play they want to go for, is just, it's brilliant. We saw the amount of safety Parabellum were looking to have. You saw the rotate heading back into pillar, being in a better spot to deal with not only someone pushing in from backstairs and blue bunker, but any kind of, funny E-box drop you might end up seeing. And Parabellum didn't just completely forget about elbow as well. Although the Blitz was able to make a ton of space and maybe allow some teammates to hop into the building properly, he wasn't able to get into the bomb site or even net a kill. So now you've got this long angle that Parabellum can use against you, and once you get into the dead end of blue bunker, or elbow, so to speak, my mistake, you are in a really tough spot as the Blitz by yourself on an island. He's now dead, and that was one of the main win conditions that Vipers had for the execute. With that backfiring, they were in a really rough spot, especially when Packer retook elbow and then just again just played close with the shotgun. I mean, that's the exact kind of environment you want as a smoke player, having no one looking at you and being just breaths away from your shotgun.
The Packer pump. I mean, hey, the M590, for some people, it just does dividends. And that happens to be the case for Packer. Doc, though, on the lurk, brings down Nix, who was trying to ride his way on through bunkers. So that Yana no longer going to be available, and Vipers already in the backseat of this round. Just 30 seconds in, and they've already lost a set of grenades. And for an attack that's been lacking so far, it might lack even more in this round.
Vipers as well, a team that is not, I'd say, reliant on the opening gunfight, but when you've been losing the mid-round, I guess, progress by having things turned into a 4-on-4, losing that initial entry on someone as impactful as Nyx, again, more information, which has been lacking from time to time by Vipers, and one of your only sets of grenades, like you mentioned, it's not a good start for the offensive side, as they still have so much of the map to clear out. Maxley might be able to get a cheeky play going on in through Attic, but although Parabellum have left the rotation hole open, it might be more of a bait, if anything. Maxley could be expecting that as well, so he's waiting to see if someone wants to get a little bit closer to take an engagement before he makes that final call and potentially risks a 5-on-3 going the way of Parabellum, because no one's here to trade Max.
Well, I assume Nyx was supposed to be that player, at least that was supposed to be in this position to be here with Maxilli trying to push through Attic. But now Maxilli with the Heartbreak gadget, not even flashbangs, he's just going to have to raw dog it right on through Attic. And I don't know if that's going to be the play. I think that you have to send the Amaru somewhere else, maybe big window, somewhere to be more impactful. It's actually Mr. P Poison on the big window. Vipers to just walk on into the bomb site potentially, but Doc slowing him down.
And no one over in Addict anymore. Silent can just swing uncontested. A good kill found by that 416. Here's Poison, though, from big window. He spots one, but Blaz behind that deployable shield will spray down and collect 2 separate kills for the last round here on Kids. So far, it's been a brilliant first half for Parabellum. And what more could you ask for to make it a flawless sweep for them as well? They're just 1 round away, Mason. Really, nothing has stopped them so far.
I mean, they are just murdering Vipers. I mean, the snakes, they're turning into corn snakes, really. The Vipers can't do anything. They can't. They have no answer for Parabellum right now. There's nothing creative. They crutch on the Ying so much, and they banned it on their own. And you can see why their attacks are falling so far flat. They line up for themselves. And Parabellum are playing an excellent defensive half. Their teamwork is there. Their coordination is there. The C4s are there. They're ready for these aggressive plays. Look at the band of men that have just been sent up into small tower. They're going to go for the same defensive strategy again. But the ADSs have someone up top small tower. More than likely going to be Blaz again. As long as he doesn't die early this time, I think Parabellum are going to have a clean half sweep.
And let's play devil's advocate here and say that Vipers had won this bomb site attack back in round number 3. That's still a 4-1 split. Vipers have not looked even close to winning a round besides that dining room attack where they were in a 3v1 post plan and had full site control, but they had no info or any flank watch by Shower's hallway, so Doc just flanked them for free, and then they all scurried around, did a full 180 at the exact same time, and then just lined up for Doc to just become Himothy at that last round. And maybe if you want to stretch it, the 1v1 that Nyx had, and I think it was Packer who was in Kid's room, but 7 seconds, even lower health than 7 seconds. I mean, that's just like, that's still stretching that length, just very thin. So for Vipers, their attacking half has just been very lackluster and even more impactless as well, because they haven't made any major headspace throughout this entire first half, besides, again, maybe the first time we've seen this site in play for Parabellum, but that's the tertiary bomb site. You are expected to lose this or just have an even tougher time defending it properly. And you're going to see like Vipers just trying to get rid of this pressure over by small tower, and a perfect calculation by Parabellum. They saw no one was attacking from T3. They set a guy up there, and they even have a C4 deployed as well to completely shut down Poison. And once again, your Osa is gone.
Did that come through the floor?
Yes, I mean,
an incredible C4. Yeah, you can see the floor holes right there. The Packers using this small tower defense and bait going so well, and Vipers are just falling right for it. They're falling into the trap being set by Parabellum. All this aggression being set up, and Vipers are stuck now in a standstill. They don't know what to do. How do we deal with Blaz? They have creators trying to drone grab some of that information, and same with the rest of Vipers. They might just have to try to walk on through, but that's not going to happen as Blaz is still upstairs, eventually brought down by Nyx, but so much damage has already been done. Maxilli to fall now, and with 60 seconds left, Parabellum are looking to close out with a flawless defensive half.
Just seems unlikely for Vipers to bring this one back unless Creators and Nyx have a beautiful round off of one another. Creators will at least get rid of Packer, someone who's been rather strong on the smoke roll, all things considered, but now that's been dawned a bit closer towards Kool-Aid, who's on the brethren of that smoke, the other SCS operator of the mute. But speaking of any operator in particular you'd want to worry about, or player, it'd probably be Doc, the person who clutched last time when this site was in play, and once again, he's popping up when Vipers least want to see him, leaving just Nyx in a 1v3. Sure, he's in the bomb site, but there's no chance he could get a diffuser down, or even be in a good spot to win this round. He does get rid of Silent, completely isolated, but Nyx has lost a lot of health because of that, and Parabellum, well, they know they've got case control. Doc is all the way up above in T3 to make sure Nyx is probably not going to win this predicament. Another good kill is found by Nyx, and Doc actually gets off of the high ground. He's getting ready to rotate to maybe challenge Nyx once he hops back into the bomb site, as he now recovers that diffuser and might have enough time to stick that diffuse, all things considered, but he'll be really short on time. 3 seconds to go, and Nyx is still sticking this plan. He's got no other option. Doc will finally drop down. He spots the sledge out in the open, exposed to the Frost SMG, and Parabellum, there you have it. The flawless first half, already match in series point confirmed by them.
2 dining defenses, 2 wins, and 2 clutches for Doc on the Frost. I mean, Parabellum, 6-0 match point, flawless half on Viper's map pick. It wasn't even this bad on Villa. It was a very close map, unexpectedly so. And Parabellum are just running through Vipers. I mean, the roadkill at this point is what Vipers have become to Parabellum. They're driving the bus right now, and they're going forward and backward over that poor snake that has just been hit so many times on the highway, and they continue to be slapped up. There's no more timeout on the board for Vipers. There's nothing. They have to make something happen now. They need 6 straight rounds to be strong across, and gosh, John, it's going to be a tough fight. It's a tough road. They've got good defense. They're definitely a solid team. There's definitely a chance it can happen, but they've got to wake up.
It's not even the lack of defensive prowess by Vipers. It's just you need to win 6 rounds in a row. That's just... Parabellum barely won Dining Room the first time they defended it. So if Vipers even just stay on par with what Parabellum distributed back in the first half, they're not even likely to win this map, or at the very least bring overtime to potentially win in overtime. It's just the likelihood of that, it's not enough here really for Vipers. Even if you have Nyx popping off in that entry department, able to slow down Parabellum just a bit. We've talked about their mid-round presence so often, how they're able to have those cutoff angles force away the roamers in a really tricky angle, even if they lose that first player. So it hasn't been the biggest concern for Parabellum whatsoever, not even on Villa, but probably heading into Oregon as well, since they're already looking to challenge that Solus operator played by Nyx. They already have info on him, forcing them back just a bit farther into the map, and Packer leading that charge as well with the DMR. A rather potent gun put in the right hands, and yeah, Twist doesn't want anything to do with that,
gone.
and neither does Nyx. They were just there to break drones, which, to their credit, they have removed just about half of the drone economy at Parabellum, so not a bad roam, but they were very terrified of that clear.
Well, there goes a C4, though, from Maxilli, whose gun has been rather quiet in this match, but does bring down Doc. So, hey, it's a good start, at least, for Vipers if they're going to try to win 6 defensive halves in a row. Silent will get a little bit of that utility gone and brought away. But again, like you said, John, a lot of the drones have been shot out by Vipers, and Parabellum lacking that information, stuck and a little bit lost, trying to figure out what they need to go ahead and do. There's still some information around the board, but it seems like they're just waiting to get some of these hatches open so they can start preparing for their execute.
Luckily, they do have that Gemini replicator and another logic bomb available for Packer. So despite being relatively low on drones, they have external pieces of info. I was going to say, Kool-Aid's got a shotgun. If he were to drop, it wouldn't be a bad idea.
They're
Oh,
just
no, it's not
going.
even the shotgun player. It's the Ayana to fall, and so is Blaz. But it's right into the unloving arms of Poison as he finds a triple kill. The rotate down from E-Box and the SMG-11 is marked right on the head of Packer, and now it's only the shotgun-wielding player of Kool-Aid trying to work potentially down backstairs, or at the very least, looking for a kill to maybe find if someone overextends. But even if like 2 people or 3 people overextend into him, that's still a 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3, and it won't even be a single kill for compensation. Vipers start their second half flawlessly, but they've got to keep that same energy, not just on Laundry throughout the rest of their defensive site holds.
It's the first step of their long road all the way up the mountain to climb here on Oregon of defense. Poison with a huge round there with the M590, just nice and close to the hatch, expecting aggression from Parabellum. You could hear that shotgun, although it's suppressed, it does still pack a little bit of a punch, and enough that you might be able to hear it across the map of Kool-Aid, who is bringing it out on Habana. And more than likely, Vipers expecting some sort of aggression, as when many teams go up 6-0, that's something they like to do. They like to be aggressive. They like to have fun. And that's what they brought. That's what Parabellum brought, but it bit them in the rear. They've still got plenty of rounds, though, to make just one happen. And again, Vipers, a great start, but they've got to keep it up. They've got to keep up that pressure. They've got to keep up those opening picks and shutting down the drones and information that Parabellum are bringing.
Like we mentioned, Not a bad start for Vipers on their defensive half, do not get us wrong, but they've just, again, got to keep that ball rolling. Parabellum, one clean round attack, and that is the series over. Sure, Vipers, they don't get eliminated, but they also don't get promoted, so they're going to have to play more matches in the Swiss stage before they could potentially advance into that playoffs bracket. Parabellum could maybe just punch their ticket in the next couple of seconds, and that aggression that we saw attempted by Parabellum last round could maybe be reattempted once again, but this time for a top floor attack. You already have people beginning their side of the map clear over a bit closer towards Master. Some drones coming in by Blaz as well. And there was someone, I believe, it was the Ace of Packer over by Armory that now will push back Nextly just a little bit more. And with this being a trophy extension, having someone over by Armory is going to be a huge make or break, as now Maxley could be forced to actually fall away earlier in this defensive hold before any utility even gets burned away near that deployable shield.
It's a trophy extension, but it's a small and light one at that. Not a lot of utility really being brought out. More of just one ADS and a shield as well, but it's doing its job. It's making Parabellum use so much of their utility already just for a deployable shield, an ADS, and a mute jammer. That's all they're going to get. No ground to be made up of it. All they get is trophy. And sure, that's pivotal for an execute, but really, that's not a lot to have said and done. And the minute and a half still left in the round, plenty of time for both teams to make action. Vipers just need to wait for Parabellum to come into their loving arms yet again.
And unfortunately, that grenade was not close enough, placed by that little fan towards Classroom, so it isn't actually going to break the mute jammer. The reattempt, though, is solid. So finally, that wall will be opened up by the exothermic charge. Parabellum still looking to finalize their execute just a little bit more, maybe getting someone to rotate perhaps over by Big Window. Someone could maybe sail on by from White Staircase, and there it is, that last second rotation by Doc catches one off guard. Silent just hits the go button and eliminates Poison, a 5 versus 3, and this could be it for the Vipers as Silent is looking to deal even more damage. The carnage will ensue in the bomb site. Tons of space nade for the plant. Twist will hop in, but he can't deny the thermite of sticking that diffuser on the ground. Now it's just up to Nyx, the newest addition of Vipers. He finds one kill, but that's where his journey will end. Vipers drop down. They need more games in the Swiss stage, but Parabellum, the new Pro League team, promoted in SCS.
Make their way right on through, and Parabellum, a very dominant win on their opponent's map pick of Oregon. I mean, well done to them, considering Villa was a much tougher battle. They just made quick work of Vipers. Their defense, very strong. Vipers attacks extremely lacking at that. Their timeout wasn't able to get anything going forward for them. And Parabellum, just so damn strong with the momentum in everything gained. They did just as they did in the early rounds of Villa on their attack half, where they just hit the bomb site, ignore everything that Vipers are doing, just run on in. It's exactly what you saw Silent do. Doc got the opening pick, and that allowed for Silent to just blow on up through sight, knowing that there are less bodies around, and it went very well for Parabellum.
Yep, and I mean, it was just starting off the bat of just flawless work done to make sure that Vipers couldn't really find any kind of major advantage on their attacking half. I mean, again, we just saw complete power plays by Parabellum from the very get-go, making sure that Vipers aren't getting a lot of map control for free. It's the same ideology that we saw in Villa by both Vipers and their opponents of Parabellum, but it was cranked up several notches. I mean, any kind of opportunity you could spot out, any weakness that Vipers had, Parabellum just took full advantage of, whether it be a lack of info, a lack of flank watch. We saw really a lot of major flank watch, despite having a Nomad so frequently brought out by Vipers, and it made just a night and day comparison with how Parabellum defended as a whole. That 6-0 flawless, even if, you know, Vipers can replicate that same thing, just mentally speaking, it's such a major downgrade for Vipers. And Parabellum on the attacking half, you think they try to slow down, think they'd want to change something up being on the new half, but no, they continue to up the ante. And the second they realize, oh, no one's really stopping us from just walking into the bomb site from that double wall of closet, we're just gonna go. Why not? Let's just try to get the plant down as quickly as we can and just see what happens from there.
Apparently, Vipers just fell for their demise. Parabellum going to Oregon, very, very good pick for them. Villa, it was a lot closer, and then Vipers actually picked their own grave. So for that to happen, for Vipers to ban out the Ying, and I think that's something that they struggled with, lacking the Ying on their Oregon attacks. It's an operator they use so much to try to just get 1 or 2 attacks, because on Oregon, it's a tough map to attack. It's definitely more defensive oriented, and for a team like Vipers who struggle on their attacks already to get rid of one of those operators that helps you so much. You gotta win those rounds on attack to even get to your defenses. They were thinking too far into the future, and it ended up just hurting them more so early on.
Yeah, I think, again, I mentioned this earlier during the broadcast. One of the only times that Vipers looked even decent enough for an execute was probably round 3 when they just had a numbers advantage. Every other time we saw them trying to get into the bomb site, they were in like some sort of 5-on-3 against them, or they just didn't have a lot of map control to begin with. Again, we go back to round number 1 where Montaigne is just stuck on back stairs. He can't join his teammates while everyone else is being caught in a crossfire from bunker doorway. No one's trying to make any other space somewhere else because they really can't. They're in a 3v5. You go into round number 2. It's a constant back and forth, a consistent trade fest with Parabellum having a lot of information, knowing where Vipers are looking to execute from. Added closet, maybe getting someone to creep up around a bit closer towards white stairs, but that was actually used against Vipers for that last second adaptation. So overall, Parabellum, I mean, they read Vipers like a book, to be honest. I think the stats show that pretty well too, because the only people that did, kind of poor in terms of stats were like maybe Kool-Aid and Silent, and that is a very, very heavy stretch.
Yeah, Kool-Aid doing his job, obviously, on the hard support. Someone that's not expected to light up the scoreboard, light up the leaderboard. Or he's someone who carries himself highly and puts the blame on himself a lot of the time if his performance is not up to par. But when the rest of the team is firing on all cylinders, Parabellum looks so damn good. It's a team that, again, we're very concerned about, right? They have these wishy-washy moments. They're lost to S2 in week 1. We're concerned about it. We're like, what the hell is wrong with Parabellum? Then they go and lose to a team in open qualifier number 1. They get first rounded in SI quals, right? But then they come back. They beat teams like Astralis. They beat Vipers, right? They're beating these good, solid, quality teams. So what is it with Parabellum? They're an interview, not they're a consistent team, but sometimes they're inconsistent. They have these weird moments, and Parabellum they looked so damn good today.
Well, maybe we can dive a little bit deeper into the mind of Parabellum, at least one specific player with an interview we've got queued up for everyone. It's Doc, one of the newer additions to Parabellum, but you've been here for at least a whole stage now, so a good chunk of time, Doc. How does it feel after having that very electric win after doing so well on map number 2?
It felt pretty good. We were kind of just out there playing for fun, and I don't know, we won. We did really good the second map, but we were kind of slow on the first, but we won the BO3 either way.
Yeah, fair enough. And in terms of general map bans, were you expecting something as default at this? Again, both your team and Vipers like going on maps like Border, Oregon, Villa. Were you expecting those selections here tonight?
We expected to play Oregon at least. We knew they liked that map, so we assumed we were going to go there.
All right, well, moving on as well. After getting countered a little bit by the heavy aggression we saw by Vipers in that first half, what was the major, I suppose, adaptation you guys did to just get a better foothold after that timeout was taken after the first, I think it was, 3 or 4 rounds in play for Villa?
Oh, we just stayed like closer together instead of spreading out. So then that forced, we just couldn't get, like, one of us couldn't get picked off, and then there'd be 5 of us alive. And we would just work together.
All right, well, moving on as well, did you expect Oregon to be such a one-sided affair? Because you guys just played lights out on the defensive half.
No, I didn't think it was going to be like 6-0 defense. I knew we were pretty good at defense, but I didn't think it would be that easy, at least.
Did you also expect a Ying ban to be brought out too, especially by Vipers, a team that can rely heavily on her, given the right, I guess, environment with her?
I mean, I guess they're used to playing with different operators up like Thatcher and Mav, so they just banned something they don't like playing against, like Ying.
And I would suppose, were you still expecting that same kind of just raw aggression on their attacking half as well, since they were trying to get in your face a lot, especially in that early round with like Nyx trying to lurk a lot on that first floor of Villa? Were you expecting something similar on Oregon?
I don't know. I expected something default, which is kind of what happened. They just took like half the map and then ran the Monty, so we couldn't like just run at them, if that makes sense.
All right, Doc. Well, we saw you keep things pretty concise on Oregon. I guess we'll replicate the same thing on the interview. If there's anyone you want to give a quick little shout out to, I mean, the spotlight's yours. If not, you can just head out.
Shout out Parabellum and VBM for being a great coach.
All right, thank you, Doc. You have a great rest of your day. Again, congrats on your win and congrats on your promotion as well along with it.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Well, I guess that leaves us back into the overview of what we saw today. Again, things were incredibly close, Mason, on map number 1 of Villa, but then that complete night and day comparison going in onto Oregon. I think we can kind of see that, especially in the statistics as well, because people like Poison, Maxley, and Twist, they looked pretty decent on Villa, statistically speaking, but now they are in, the 0.5 and lower regions as well for their overall, KPR and just general stats too.
I don't know if this was just an off day for Vipers on Oregon or what it was, or if Parabellum just had all of the answers to Vipers' attacks, but Oregon did not look like what Vipers usually typically play Oregon. Like, it definitely did not look like the way that they play, and they're typically pretty successful in Oregon, especially in their past history, but they've also had some weird moments. They lost to PLG on Oregon in SI qualifier number 2. So seeing a team like Vipers go back to that map, having the confidence and the faith just for the same results to be beat by a team like Parabellum, it's a little concerning.
So we'll take a quick look at the bracket once again before we wrap up things here at SCS to see what we've got in store for us tomorrow and what we've already seen promoted throughout today. Again, we had Parabellum advance in that promotion, so they're now the 3rd team that has made it into playoffs here for SCS. We saw Australis win their game against Hong Kong Rebels, which I'm sure nobody was expecting. That just came out of left field, as you can hear the sarcasm coming out of my mouth as everyone voted for Australis to win,
except for
Harrison. And it is against Hong Kong Rebels. Well, that's fair. Hong Kong Rebels, they did put up a very clean fight against Astralis. It was just, the map bans were kind of favoring Astralis a bit more, and it is a T1 team compared to a T3 team. You're not expected to win that game, but they got a couple of good round wins against them, so that's all you can really ask for. And the 2 games that we've got stocked up tomorrow or December 14th is that Aerial Rise Academy versus Luminosity matchup and RTV versus the Wichita Wolves. What are your initial thoughts, Mason, looking at those 2 best of 3s we've got in store tomorrow?
It's going to be good matchups. I do think that it's surprising to see RTV here in this phase, but losing to S2, obviously putting them down here. I think our RTV was one of the teams that we thought we'd see in that 3-0 range, especially with how dominant that they've been so far and even making the close qualifier for SI. But I think that we'll see RTV go ahead and knock down Wichita on that other game, though. The Aerial Rise ACAD and Luminosity game, I believe Harrison and I are actually casting that one. And for that match, it's close. I really do think that both of those teams are close with how they play. You've obviously got the Young Gunners, Young Bloods of AAA, but you've also got LG, and these 2 teams know each other very well. Both of them obviously having friends across both rosters. Asian formerly playing for Aerial Rise Academy for most of the time. I do think that Luminosity will end up spitting that one out, but I don't know. I guess said again, I think it's going to be a close match between those 2 teams. John, I don't know what your thoughts are, though.
I feel like it's going to be the same story of, the Parabellum versus Vipers game we just did, except minus Oregon. Like, you look at what happened on Villa, it's a very close game. Both teams are very familiar with one another and how they like to play, and in general, just the overall play style as well. Aerial Academy and Luminosity are very up in your face. They like to secure those opening gunfights just to have, ease of mind going throughout the rest of the action phase as a whole. And again, I talked about maps. Both Aerial Academy and Luminosity love Villa. We've seen them on Oregon a couple of times too. Cafe is a good example where it's not brought out by them a lot, but they don't hate going there. Theme Park could be an interesting one, but I don't think I've ever seen Luminosity play on Theme Park. That could be a bit of a dark horse. And then the one map I haven't mentioned is Chalet. That is a map that Aerial Academy and Luminosity love to death. So that first best of 3 is going to be really fun just because, again, it's kind of what we saw today, but hopefully consistent throughout the whole night and not just a blowout towards the latter end of that matchup. And then RTV versus Wichita Wolves, that's just, I don't even know what to say about that game. I don't even think JJ's playing for Wichita Wolves anymore.
I think he's gone, yeah.
It's not even like funny storyline of JJ versus Mr. B. It's just like Wichita versus RTV, and RTV are like 90% sure going to win that. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. I hate to say Mason.
I think so
like
too. I really do think so. I think that RTV definitely have the better hand in that matchup, and I think we expect to see RTV promoting themselves very soon.
Yeah, well, with all being said, I think we've held you guys on for long enough. We look forward to seeing you potentially tomorrow for, again, our 2 matchups, Luminosity versus Aerial Academy and RTV versus Wichita Wolves. We hope you all have a great rest of your night. And again, see you all tomorrow for more SCS action.
Oh. It's getting so old. Is a 10% stinky?